just going to be totally honest with you. I will never be able to convince you of my worldview.
You won't.
I know. But the reason is not because I'm not a great orator, or I don't make good points, or I haven't said things which should be compelling to a person. But Charlie, I just think honestly you're too fucking stupid to understand them.
So Andrew, can I sell you on my worldview?
Yes.
Your wife has 3 baby daddies and has been married twice before.
And you you lick sniz.
And has been married twice before.
And you lick sniz. And you lick sniz. And you lick sniz. And you lick sniz
before.
And you lick sniz.
Your religion.
You lick sniz. You're a fucking dyke. Don't talk shit about my wife, you stupid bitch. Shut your fucking mouth. Shut your stupid bitch mouth.
Your wife with the 3 baby.
What did I just say, dyke?
Your wife with the 3
Sorry,
baby.
I'm sorry, dyke. Is she morally inconsequential in comparison to your ditch licking?
Has 3 baby daddies and has been married twice before.
And you lick sniz. And this is going to be fantastic. Because most of these debaters are representing whole worldviews.
Studios in Atlantic City is where the champions will be named.
If you want to cover it, you want to stream it.
It's where the best go to bang. It's where the best go to lick sniz. What up, everybody? What does he offer? He offers a whole worldview. And most of these people are offering that, but not a whole worldview. It's the Batman! I might mod you too, Vox. We'll see. Takes me a while to make these decisions. Ba-da-da-da, Sam Tripoli. I can't believe he fat shamed Rob. Do 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 do. Can't trust anyone. Why is it spicy? Yo, what up, everybody? Hope everyone's having a good Thursday, a spicy Thursday. Did your water shut off today, folks? Because mine did. You ever have that moment when the water shuts off and you really need it for certain reasons? You guys ever do that? Anyway, folks, big night stream today. Hope everyone's having a good time and getting hyped for January. Don't forget, you walked out of the movie theater. What did you watch? Slime Deluxe. Some kind of movie? What movie? Marvel? Something else? Hope you guys are getting excited for January, where we'll have the first Word War debate. Sponsored by Sam Tripoli and Big People. And big people. I keep saying we when it comes to Word War debate because I kind of want to manifest it into existence that I'll be a part of this movement, this growing movement, this growing different little movement that we have to have a premier debate show where I can work with perhaps the illustrative names such as Andrew Wilson and Rob Noor. A little key update on Rob Noor. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I noticed that the drama with Sarah Tomato channel is continuing. And we really are just keeping an eye on it to see if this thing gets any bigger. But right now, continuing friction between Sarah the Raging Tomato and Robert Noor and Andrew Wilson. So we're keeping an eye on that. Like, we're one of the few channels that actually is keeping an eye on this very thing. I don't know anything about that. It was sick. One Battle. Oh yeah, I've already seen that. It's a good movie. It's a very good movie. It's got very good things in it. I think that Leo's performance is just. It's kind of. To me, it felt a little bit like his performance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just like changed a little bit. So he didn't impress me that much, but I was impressed by Benito. Oh my God. I don't want to say it wrong. Benicio del Toro. Got it. He did a really good job. And fucking this crazy guy who's Sean Penn. Sean Penn, I think, did a really, really good job as well. Before we get into the content of the day, a little additional update on Word War debate. This is Word War debate update. Just let me make sure this is correct. Yes, we are getting this. We are getting this. So Steven Crowder is like one of the first headliners. This is a leak. This appears to be a leak for Word War debate. So no one who isn't us is staying abreast of this update. But this appears to be a leaked confirmation of perhaps one of the first headliners of Word War debate. Steven Crowder, who said he accepted this invitation. And I love this, like, Word War debate reached out like, wait, hold up, who's Word War debate? Because the channel only has like 500 followers on Twitter right now. And I wonder if anyone's like, who the hell is Moop? Do you guys know that South Park? 2% said yes, they want Moop to play. 3% said no. 95% said, who the hell is Moop? Oh my God, you guys kill me sometimes. You kill me with this. Watch it. Noted good husband, Steven Crowder. Yeah, no. So this is a bit of a leak. I would love to see a battle of worldviews between Candace Owens and Steven Crowder, and then presumably the VIP tickets would be sold out in like seconds. I'm guessing. Where the best go to bang? Why did you go to Israel? I didn't go to Israel. Never been to Israel. Not that there's anything wrong with going to Israel necessarily. Is there? I don't know. I haven't researched the Israel meta in a little bit of time. In a small amount of time. Quick legal updates. why don't I give you the full screen for some of the legal updates, because we're not going to go through the filings, but just to run a few of them down, and then we'll get into the debate. The debate I want to get into is this debate on Wick TV about whether we should have a Nuremberg-style response to Trump, post-Trump. And I've said things that people might think are similar in that I want a commission of truth afterwards, but this is another one of those discussions where my position is going to really much depend on like whether or not we have a good comprehension of what we mean by Nuremberg-style hearing or something, because that I think will determine a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. Because there are different ways I can understand the Nuremberg-style commission or whatever, to the extent that it's, imposing the death penalty. I don't agree with the death penalty. So on that sense, I wouldn't want it to be a Nuremberg-style event, because I don't agree with the death penalty and they killed a bunch of the Nazis. They executed them. Or they killed themselves because someone slipped them a little pill. This, I think, is Goering. I think Himmler also killed himself. And Hitler did. And Goebbels. A lot of them killed themselves. I was listening to another, speaking of pre-sup debates, because now that I have it in my head, I've been watching some more of them just to, I get this fixation, I get this fixation on these different arguments. So while I'm going and, doing a little chore or doing some other task, I'll listen to it. And one of the effective strategies for one of these precept debates was asking whether or not Jesus Christ killed himself. And it was very, very, I liked it a lot. Because they were twisting themselves, and I was like, no, he didn't kill himself. Oh, so he didn't intend to die? And they got him to agree to a particular definition of suicide. And, it wasn't just being the direct cause. Obviously, if you throw yourself in a pen filled with tigers and you let the tigers kill you, right? You are, in a sense, even though it's, I guess, the volitional act of the tigers, you are, in a sense, killing yourself, right? Anyway, that's just, it was an interesting side quest. But to the legal updates, and we'll get into that discussion, which and I'll be fair and balanced on it. We have, on the panel is, obviously, Wick's a host. This is my sense of it. Probably Destiny Prime, I'm guessing, on the side of Nuremberg style, whatever that means. And then probably Connor Points and Wick himself on the side of not. My guess is that they're all for being nice to everybody. Yeah, no, this was Tom Rabbit. This was a Tom Rabbit one. This was Tom Rabbit on whether Jesus Christ killed himself. And it was an interesting one. And it actually kind of undermined the whole, everything. Because if you stop to think about it a little bit, well, I don't know if you made this point directly. Most Christians would consider suicide a sin, or at least a certain type of Christian. I don't think you necessarily have to buy into that. But God, of course, is defined by his inability to sin, right? God, for a lot of these precept people, anything God does is by definition good, because he is where good emanates from. So it's almost like a logical contradiction for God to sin. That just because God is what determines what is sin. Sin is described as counter to God's nature or God's design or God's mind or something, right? But they start with the axiom or the position that suicide is sinful. And Jesus Christ is God, because they also buy into the Trinity, right? And it's not this notion of a Trinity of, it's a true, I think it's a contradictory thing. But anyway, this is not at all relevant to the debate. All I'm going to say is I think that there are greater potential extrapolations from the argument of suicide or unaliving. Am I not allowed to say suicide? Sorry. Unaliving in the context of the precept debates, because it will, if you grant that Jesus and God, Jesus who is God, killed himself, unalived himself, and unaliving oneself is a sin, of course, that's a contradiction, because God can't sin, and Jesus Christ is God, and so God would have. So you need to have this weird kind of thing, where it wasn't killing himself, even though if it were anyone else, it would be killing themselves, because so you have to be oh, so Jesus Christ didn't intend to die. So he didn't intend to die for our sins. Oh, so he did intend to die for our sins. So he intended to die, right? And it is so glorious watching them squeam, these precept people. I sometimes get these little like side tangents of people that I get just like I say, fixated on discussing them. It happened that one time with that TikTok fugitive person. Do you remember that TikTok fugitive person? People, oh geez, I think I saw Grip in the chat. I know I saw Grip in the chat. We went on like such a side tangent to go through all of these different laws and filings to find out what the hell happened with this TikTok fugitive person. But yeah, I'll take these side derails onto like the statutes and laws regarding custody in situations of like for taking your child out of the country, these subject matter jurisdiction rules of the different places and how that's developed over time in Pennsylvania versus where was the other state he was located? Pennsylvania and it was some other state. Was it Ohio? I don't know. You love this topic as an amateur Bible scholar. In-stream disagreements. Elijah Harris. Oh God, people will okay, we're gonna limit this conversation to 10 minutes. We're gonna limit this conversation to 10 minutes, and then we will do the legal updates, and then we will also do the debate. And that's on Wick TV, that's with Counterpoints, that's with Destiny, that's with Wick TV, and that's with Prime Kai. So just give me a second. 10 minutes. Put it on the clock. So 10:40. All right? 10:40. And then we'll watch the Word War debate trailer 5 more times. Molten Hot Magma. How you doing, Magma? You're live right now. You want to discuss a topic?
How's it going? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. You good?
My mic quality's all right?
Your mic quality's good.
All good. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Of course. How can I help you? You heard something and you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, no, you were talking about the concept of Jesus on the cross being God, his own free will in that situation, the presuppositionalism and that kind of whole thing.
Yeah. I think the question...
I just wanted to...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I was fascinated by a conversation that I heard in which it seemed like some Christians were struggling with the following questions. Did Jesus Christ kill himself or unalive himself? I guess we'll start there. That's the first question.
Yeah, absolutely. I just to kind of clarify my beliefs and my backgrounds. I absolutely am a Christian, absolutely am a follower of Jesus Christ. That has absolutely changed in the modern American landscape of the last 15, 20 years. Like I would say that to actually say that or claim that would be a incongruency with everything MAGA right now. So just to put that out there. Also, I think that the whole philosophy around presuppositionalism is incredibly interesting. So I'm super into it. And as someone who's studying the Bible, and getting into a whole bunch of different scholars and a whole bunch of different arguments and listening to a bunch of college lectures and going back to school myself, trying to frame it all in my own head. But I would say that yes is the short answer, but the long answer is no.
That's a contradiction.
I would love to go deeper.
Can't be yes and no.
So I would say that when you said if the definition of suicide is him knowing that he is putting himself in a situation in which he is going to die, absolutely. He 100% did it. No jokes. Yes. Short answer, yes.
He purposely caused his own death, right? It's not like a situation in which someone... you might jump into the middle of a street to save a baby, let's say, and you're putting yourself at risk, but you probably hope not to die.
Of course, yeah.
There could be some situations.
This is the opposite of that. Yes.
Yeah, his conscious object was to die. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I want to absolutely. And I would say that in the Bible itself, in the story itself, I'm not sure how familiar you are if you've read it. He is begging God the Father himself to not have this responsibility of going to die. And I believe this is either like the night before or the night before his trial, which was like 48 hours before his death in the story. So like I just want to go off of like the story versus like the individual beliefs and like kind of clarify what I believe versus what is actually in the Bible. But yeah, I believe it is Luke 22:42, he's like, Father, Father, please take this cup from me if you would possibly will it. If there's any way, please, I don't want this responsibility. Which I would say basically shows that he's aware of what he's doing and that therefore like does call into question the typical suicide, self-harm, all of those things which are typically considered sin in the traditional Christian sense.
Ah, I see. So you think that so killing oneself by itself, right? And you would agree that unaliving oneself, we can say suicide, that a kind of standard version of that would be intentionally causing the death of oneself, correct? That you would see that as suicide?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say that the Venn diagram with martyrdom here is like not a circle or anything, but I would say that Jesus falls in the middle, kind of.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that there's this concept of martyrdom that you just introduced, but for suicide, and we'll talk about that. For suicide, there are some suicides that you think are sinful and some that are not, correct?
No. The real question here is like the concept of sin, Christian sin, this idea of sin. I would say that the American Christian Church and the Western Christian Church is almost completely devoid from the biblical description of sin, and it is a problem, but like, so just to clarify kind of the difference there, I would say that the definition of sin, if you wanted to go into like the very like true to the Bible sense, is it is the things in our lives which bring us farther away from what is for the greater good or what is for God's purposes. Because the whole point is that if God were to know everything in the hypothetical context of like infinite knowledge, omnipresence, whatever, like if it really is what the Bible says and you were to flush out that worldview, his long-term worldview would always be he would have the context of all the people, and like if you also believe he's good, which is also in the Bible, he would be doing the good for the most people, which does come out to a whole bunch of like the problem of evil, but that's not exactly this discussion. I know you wanted to keep it short.
No, but it's interesting what you said. You said where so evil is defined as going contrary to God's plan for the good, right?
That's not how I would define it, but that's how the American Christian, or I guess I would say that evil is the things that we choose in our own lives that like keep us away from that plan. I don't think that there's any permanency in sin, which is a lot of how it is. I would say that like if you were to choose to be stealing, if you were choosing to be manipulating someone or to be like trying to use someone for your own gain, that inherently is like a selfish action, which brings you farther away from like what God wants for your life. And so like,
how would you know that
in the Christian sense? So like for the Christian idea, the whole idea is that like, if you were following him, you would be doing what would be the most good for the most people all the time. But most people are just like self-serving.
So I have a lot of questions. The first is like,
please. I would go
for the God's plan thing. It does sound like though that like what God can't sin, right? God can't be evil.
Yes, okay. I would say that as definitionally as the creator of the universe, if he were to create the senses of morality that exist, and he were to create all of the emotions that would exist within people, our sense of evil and our sense of sin and all that, he would be in opposition to all of that. But just real quick to circle back before we go a little bit deeper, with the sin versus suicide thing.
Yeah.
I would say that the idea of sin being like this permanent stain and stuff is absolutely an idea in the Bible, but there is a difference in like evil and sin, and all of these words really can be summed up as just like self-servingness. And Jesus, the whole purpose of the New Testament is that humans are no longer dealing with their own selfishness anymore, is that there was a permanent resolution to the problem that has been going on for all of humanity, which is supposedly the story of the Bible, if you believe the story of the Bible. And then like this moment of resolution that happens around 2/3 of the way through the book is like basically the climax. And then everyone else is basically like, whoa, what just happened on this big cosmic God scale? And so like, as he took care of what is sin, the whole point of being a Christian is to, first of all, like accept that and then come to terms with the fact that you are now you're living a hypocrite's life, essentially, that you are now trying to emulate someone who, if you believe what actually is it, he was a perfect man. If you truly believe it, that he had no selfish intent in his heart, and if you at least believe that he went about his entire life trying to do the most good for the most people,
right?
Without any selfishness.
Jesus never sinned. Fair.
Theoretically, yes.
Okay.
So I would say that
when you say theoretically, wait. When you say theoretically,
100%.
On your view, Jesus never sinned. Fair.
Yes, in my view and the Christian view of the Bible, Jesus never sinned, including when he committed suicide.
Okay.
In that moment, because suicide.
It was
is
according
not
to God's
inherently
plan.
sinful.
So it was good. I just want to make that
Yeah,
clear. It was good for
essentially
Jesus
hit
to
the nail on the
die. It was good for Jesus to die.
Yes, I would say that it was inherently a part of the plan,
Right.
and it was a plan for longer than before Jesus got there. Like there was all these prophecies, and we have some evidence of the prophecies pre-existing Jesus because we have books and ancient things that are pre-existing that. That some of them are
right.
Like,
So it
hinting
was
in the direction. None of them as closely as like a lot of the modern Christian church claims, but like yeah, there is some evidence of like.
And it was good for Judas to betray Jesus. Fair.
No, I
Why?
think that the Bible makes it pretty clear that it is not good because the plan was not that he was going to be betrayed the entire time, or if the plan was that he was going to be betrayed the entire time.
If that was the
I guess-
plan, if that was the plan, then it would have been good for Judas to
Yes.
betray Jesus, and it would
If
have been
that was
good
the
for
plan.
the Romans to crucify him.
Yes, I would say that if that was the plan, I would go one step farther, and this is going to go into like a whole bunch of like, honestly, almost like metaphysics at this point. But I am going to suggest that if a God had infinite capabilities and infinite, like hypothetically, the hypothetical infinite God does exist, which I believe, would he be limited to one timeline that every human is locked into every decision for their entire lives? Or would he be able to create capacity for humans to have free will in their life? And what if that is the special thing about life? Is our free will, and that's like the entire purpose of us being here, and we choose what to make value out of, which kind of comes into like the whole meta ethics of truth isn't real, but like we make our own truth, and like that's how God designed it, which absolutely is my belief. And so like I believe that Judas had the choice to deceive or not. Jesus would have probably been killed. Jesus would have been killed either
No matter
way
what.
or not. But
But
in that
wait.
fulfill a role.
But that's that's a form of determinism, because if you really buy that there's free will, then you have to accept the possibility, right?
Jesus could have said no.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is like, if you accept the notion of free will, I don't understand that notion. I think it's incoherent. I really don't think it makes sense. But if you buy it
I
in,
understand that.
then you can't say that it was inevitable that Jesus would have been killed, correct?
To
say otherwise would just say it's deterministic. And if
yes, I would say that it would be
right.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
So in which case you can't rely on multiverse to for any of these given decisions.
I would say that if Jesus is a person and has free will, and he has the choice to say no, and that would have modified human history, doesn't that make it more impactful?
Whether it makes it more impactful isn't the question. I mean, maybe it will make it more impactful.
What is the question? If you could clarify.
Right. The question is, to what extent someone did wrong under God's plan, and Jesus clearly didn't do wrong by. First of all, Jesus is God, right? So there's an identity between Jesus and God.
Yeah.
So whatever Jesus's plan is, right. Like if Jesus chose, you would have to grant this, right? If Jesus chose not to die, it would by definition be good, right? because Jesus
That
can't.
is actually an
it's
incredibly accurate question.
Yeah.
If Jesus were to separate from God's will,
Wait, no,
which God
he is
asked him
God.
to-
Wait, he can't separate from.
No,
There's an
actually,
identity.
that is the entire purpose of why then would Jesus be suggesting in Luke 22, God, please take this from me. I do not will this, but if it is your will, I
because you have.
understand."
Yeah, I think you either have to buy that God is a schizophrenic or that the Trinity doesn't make any sense.
I think that the Trinity is a idea that exists throughout the entire Bible, and the way that the American church and the Western church teaches it is not wrong, but it has all of the correct parts. It phrases it very weird. I would say that Jesus, 100%, in the words of the Bible, is God made flesh. And that's like the whole purpose is that he was
In which
made
case, God
into
is
a perfect
right. He's incapable
person.
of sinning.
He was not, just real quick,
Yeah.
he was not an illusion of a person that looked just like a person. He was a person made of blood and bones and everything. So if he was doing that and he had the mind of a person, he therefore is now operating with a brain. So he is now within human limitation, and there's a whole bunch of Christian debate over at what point in time he knew he was Jesus, whether it was from the moment.
Does
of
he
birth,
have free will?
Whether it was like at some moment. Yes, I absolutely think that he had free will because he had the choice to do it or not, as said in the Bible.
Could he
So
could he
I
have
am saying-
could he have chosen to do the bad?
Yes, absolutely. That was the entire point of the temptation in the wilderness.
But if he does
in
bad, doesn't that
story
make
in the Bible.
if he does bad, doesn't that disprove that he's God?
It would, yes, and that was the
So he
entire
does.
purpose.
So, but he is God.
Can I frame
right?
the kind of Christian theology around this whole
Okay, yeah, sure.
idea? Is that like this? We aren't the first two people to ever have this conversation.
I know.
And I don't want to come across as like a heavy-headed postmodern freak.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so the whole Christian thinking around it is that God gave this mission to so many people to fix the world. Is that he had Moses, he had Noah, he had all of these people, and every one of them in every one of their stories is a very flawed person who does very incorrect things, and all of them are bad. And the idea behind this is that no human on their own could be able to do it, and every person failed to be able to live up to God's standards, and every person will fail to live up to God's standards forever, period. So God intervened by giving one human some sort of special ability, some sort of special godness that he put on earth that gave him the free will to choose good or evil. And through this some special godness, he had the sense or the awareness or some extra capacity to understand good and evil, chose good every single time for his entire life, including when he chose to die. And then he died, and that fulfilled the prophecy and fulfilled the good of God's plan.
Here's what I see.
That is the Christian framing, and I understand if you want to pick that apart.
Yeah,
100%, go for it.
and I want you to come back tomorrow or something. But I do. This is the last point that I want to.
No problem.
I want to get
hop
down.
Out of your hair.
No. Stay here. Just for this last part. If you say, this is my contention, that Jesus had free will to do the bad, then you're saying it's logically possible for Jesus to sin. And here's a contradiction. You also say, because Jesus is God, that it's logically impossible for God to sin. That's the contradiction. It's both is and isn't logically possible for Jesus to sin.
I would say that absolutely that is right the nail on the head, and that is the Christian moment, and that is the claim that Jesus claims to make in the Bible.
No, but that's a contradiction. That's a contradiction. That doesn't. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, that is the claim he is making, is that he is both man and God, and that he is able to make these decisions. That he is.
I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. So I think that your view necessitates that Jesus is and isn't able to sin.
So I think that this comes down to the God moving the immovable object whole thing. Is God able to make himself capable of sinning? I guess is my saying. I'm saying that I think that God is able to make a piece of himself, that whatever he did to make this part
that is able to sin
thing, that is able to sin.
So God is able to sin, therefore, right?
He made Jesus able to sin. If you wanted to segment it to just one corner of the Trinity is able to sin, I guess you could say that. and then I would have to retract my previous statement as God is not.
I just think that
But
if
I do think that you're pointing out a great point.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
If God is able,
that would be my belief.
If God is able to sin or create something that's able to sin, then it suggests that that there's some kind of third standard for what sin is that isn't with reference to God. Because surely, God's unless you're just you can use free will, whatever, but it doesn't work with Jesus unless you're willing to grant that Jesus did not have free will, or at least he didn't have free will to sin.
Jesus had free will because God gave him the ability to see consequences of his actions to the point that he chose the unselfish action every single time.
He freely chose the good.
He freely chose to align with God's will, even though he didn't always understand it, as clarified in the story where he's asking to not have it happen to him.
The last thing I'll say, I'll give you the last word, though. I think
God's so just real quick.
Yeah.
God is contracting his own will. So Jesus in that story is already having a different will on two different sides of the Trinity. So I would say that either the whole story as it's been written for thousands of years is a contradiction, which can be your point, absolutely valid, good to go. But I would say that is the belief. And I think that him making himself able to sin is we can talk about that, and that is something to go deeper on. But I think that is the central claim of Jesus, is that he is something that is out of the ordinary completely. But please, you wanted to close.
Well, yeah, I'll do my last thing and just say, but no, certainly come back some other time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That I think you haven't resolved the contradiction about Jesus' ability and inability to sin. I don't think that's resolved. But even if I were to grant you, I think you're going to have a huge problem of evil issue in the future because you've just committed yourself to say it's logically possible for God to create beings that freely choose the good no matter what. And it wouldn't be contradictory with his aim to create beings that have free will. And so if you're going to grant that it's logically possible for God to create beings that freely choose, under your view of what free will is, freely choose the good, then now you have a huge problem because something's going to have to go away. Either his omnibenevolence, his omnipotence, or his omniscience.
That's the problem of evil, yes. Yeah. And I do actually have the problem of evil is a whole another thing. I don't want to get into that right now. I'll give you your time back, and I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, dude. Later.
Take.
Oh, wow. Sorry, guys. That went a little longer than 10 minutes. It went double what I said. I said 10 minutes. It went 20 minutes. So I didn't go that far off field, folks. I didn't go that far off field. We just, every now and then, we got to do a little God debate. All right. First off, some legal updates for you guys before we get into this Battle of the Titans debate between the Titans. This Titan debate on WikiTV. So, first off, this whole thing from Comey, there's a new filing that's we have this grand jury foreperson who claims we actually did vote on this indictment. Now, I don't agree with this DOJ filing. One of the reasons I don't agree with the DOJ filing is because it's kind of ambiguous on the phrasing. The phrasing being that it seems like the foreperson is just saying, we voted on these charges, not on the specific instrument. If you guys recall, the whole issue is there were 2 or 3, I think there might even be 3 indictments, but at least 2 indictments. An initial indictment where it appears that they no-billed the entire thing, but talking to the foreperson, it appears that the foreperson was basically saying, well, we just no-bill the first count. That's what the foreperson is kind of saying. But we agree with the other 2 counts. But it doesn't say that, according to some reportings, that the first indictment doesn't on its face accept those other 2 charges. It just no-bills the first charge, but it doesn't have that they agree to the other 2 charges. But apparently, and I don't doubt it, that the grand jury foreperson, I don't have reason to doubt it at the current moment. I have reason to doubt the grand jury foreperson's procedural knowledge, because this is just some random person, right? But I don't have any doubt that the grand jury probably was willing to have the indictment on the other 2 counts. But that's not the question. The question is, did they present the altered indictment, right? So grand jury foreperson comes to DOJ. Foreperson says, hey, we are good on these 2, not on this other one. DOJ makes second indictment. Grand jury foreperson signs it. Grand jury has been dismissed. And grand jury foreperson and DOJ walk in with 2 indictments. Go to the magistrate judge and say, hey, we have that colloquy that they posted in their filing recently. And that's what the Megyn Kellys of the world, oh my God, Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the 10 tier 1 subs. Guys, it makes me, you kill me when you do such kind things to me. Thank you so much. I super appreciate all of your benevolence, all of your help, all the things you do. You like the show. You subscribe to the channel. This is really awesome. And thank you so much. Fake Me rules. Super appreciate you. Super appreciate everything you do. Thank you, Fake Me rules. You're the best. You're the best. On Comey. Wait, we're going to keep going. Sorry. But thank you so much for the subs. I get in a rhythm and I'm just like, all right. So what's the issue? The issue is you have two attorneys, including Halligan, I think herself, who's asked under oath by the court, did you present this second indictment to the grand jury? Answer, no. And then they submit a filing that said, we did, because look at what the grand jury foreperson said. Well, number one, imagine that the grand jury foreperson is telling the truth, right? Imagine that. The grand jury foreperson is more knowledgeable about the specific procedures and the specific fact pattern regarding as opposed to the lawyers who are heading the case as to which indictment was presented to the grand jury. Suppose that the grand jury foreperson, in other words, is the person to believe, if you were to believe the DOJ's telling of what the grand jury person said as provided by the excerpt of the transcript. If that were the case, then we have two prosecutors that don't know fucking shit and at worst are lying. But even if that were true, that means by definition, the grand jury materials that the DOJ provided to the court is incomplete, right? So even if it were the case, even if it were true, which I don't think it is true, even if it were true that they actually did present the second indictment to the grand jury, and the timeline suggests they didn't, and the fact that they said we had already dismissed the grand jury means they didn't, in my opinion. But if they had, that means we're missing huge amounts of grand jury material, or at least enough grand jury materials to show, hey, by the way, guys, this is the second indictment, and you just need to sign this off. We made a new indictment, and it's the same instructions as before. Do you agree to it? Yes. Do you? Yes. So if they did present it to the grand jury the second time, where is that transcript? Why doesn't the court have it, right? Why have you withheld it from the court when the court ordered you to give it over? So you can't get away from that problem, even if you were to grant it. But you shouldn't grant it, because it didn't happen. It almost certainly didn't happen. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They say, we complied with the court's order to give all grand jury materials, and they're just pre-baking their legal argument to say it's no big deal. It's no big deal to alter an indictment and present it as though the grand jury signed off on it. Thank you, Akila. Where obviously that's a big deal. The whole grand jury process is there to establish a procedural protection against shenanigans. And so you saying, oh, it's harmless. Oh, it's harmless? It's harmless because they probably would have signed off anyway? No. You have to dot your I's and cross your T's, especially of a case of this importance. What does it show? It shows that they were rushed. As we already know, they were crunched for time. That's why they weren't getting warrants, by the way, on the other materials. That's why they were desperately, up until like the last day, trying to get this indictment to go through. Explains a lot of other things, why they didn't talk about privilege, try to have a filter team early on in the process, because they were crunched up against time. And it doesn't matter. You need to make sure that the indictment that you have is a real indictment. The most likely situation right now is that James Comey was never indicted. It's a Chinese food menu that they wrote their names on. It's not an actual indictment. Because an indictment presupposes a grand jury signing off on it. Now, you could say, after the fact, when you have a real indictment, maybe there are form things that you can edit to like change the paragraph or a clerical issue. I'm not saying that automatically makes it invalid. Once you have a valid return, like indictment, then edit, right? Then have a process by which you edit after you validly have an indictment. But we don't have an indictment here. We never went through the process to make sure this was in fact an indictment. That is to have the grand jury vote on it, on the operative document. So thank you very much for the subs, by the way. I really appreciate the jokes that you guys are playing on, the pranks of subbing to the channel. That's one of the legal updates that I want to talk about is don't listen to the bullshit artists. Don't listen to Megyn Kelly. These guys are trained liars. They lie by definition. Did you see Trisha McLaughlin, by the way? Trisha McLaughlin, this is the DHS freak that they have running comms and trying to debunk shit by lying. Like she's like, oh, it's debunked that they removed the swastika from the list of hate. Like, and she goes, this is a bunch of lies. Doesn't explain how they're lies. We have the Washington Post like putting up the different standards for the Coast Guard with respect to the swastika and hate stuff. You don't believe these people. If they're coming from the government, they have no credibility. You would think that these degenerate MAGA swamp fuckers who spent all of Biden's administration yelling about the swamp and liars from the government, you think that they would be aware with this of like not trusting the government. But you guys should be extra not trusting the government right now because they're proven liars on basically everything from the top down, on the Epstein files, on whether there's a basis to investigate. Did you see Pam Bondi the other day? She's like, the question, right? Obvious question. Why are you initiating investigations when you said in July that there's nothing more to investigate? New information came to light. New information came to light. Cooked. This woman is completely cooked. And everyone in the administration is like that. You need to not believe anything you read from the government. Automatically not believe it. And especially these people who are still clinging to be bootlicking shills of the administration, including Megyn Kelly, including Ben Shapiro, including any of these people who are distrusting the government. Other legal updates. Let me see. There was a ruling on the, we might take a look at it tomorrow, on the DC deployment. They stated, a lot of what these lower courts are doing is rather than have these annoying fights about the admin stays and the stays at the intermediate appellate level, when you have all this bullshit going on, they just automatically stay their own rulings because they're tired of all this chicanery from like drawing a panel of freak circuit court judges. And also in the interest of making sure, you know, it's consequential separation of powers, especially on the DC stuff where the president technically has operational control of the National Guard. She stayed her own ruling for a fixed period of time. So that happened. Just keep an eye on it. But it was ruling what's going on unlawful under the organization of DC. Let me think if there's, go to my list. Any other things before we get into this debate, this battle of the Titans? Oh, yeah. I wonder. So, okay. They're investigating Democrats, right? They're investigating Democrats for some bullshit. So they're investigating Adam Schiff and Letitia James. And this freak of nature that they have in charge of, this partisan swamp fucker they have in charge of the DC U.S. Attorney's Office, I think that's right, is named Ed Martin. And this guy is a freak. He's a degenerate freak, right? We know this. To be appointed by this administration entails it. And so, I guess he was acting for a while, and now he's special attorney addressing mortgage fraud by public officials for the Justice Department under the leadership of Pam Bondi and Trump. The administration, apparently, or some other part of the DOJ, has impaneled a grand jury to investigate his misconduct in the investigation into... So there's a political investigation that started, and Ed Martin took over it from the DOJ. And apparently, he's being corrupt even for the Trump administration DOJ. And now he is being investigated for his misconduct on a political fucked investigation itself. It's turtles all the way down, folks. even in their own corrupt investigation, they're being corrupt on it. The nature of that, not 100% clear to me, but the news is that they have initiated a criminal investigation into the criminal investigation into the Democrats. I can't, like, they're only, you see that, like, there's like the circle. Fuck, what is it? It's like a meme. It's like one of those soy jack memes where it's like, we need to do this, we need to do that. It's like circle. I don't know. But anyway, their answer, DOJ's like answer to everything is just, we need investigation. We need an investigation. And that's their whole thing. And it's always nothing burgers. When you even talk about like Durham report, what did they do? They got one plea deal from someone who like admitted that he altered an email. But what I tweeted at Ed Martin, I said, don't worry. I said, don't worry, Ed. Trump will just pardon you or fire whoever is investigating you. Because isn't that like, do we expect that any kind of prosecution against someone that Trump appointed, even if they're being corrupt on their own corrupt prosecutions, is going to stand? I mean, I suspect that he'd probably get pardoned or something, but would Trump actually care if the corrupt prosecutors who are running his corrupt prosecutions are being corrupt about the corrupt prosecutions? Like, is that the only way we're going to get justice? Is if the prosecutors and cronies he appoints are so corrupt that they are even undermining their own investigations that are corrupt? Who knows? Who knows these days? All right, folks, that's about all I have for legal updates. Let me just make sure. Oh, and then finally, this unhinged Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals judge, he wrote an opinion in dissent on the Texas redistricting case. We went over aspects of that case the last room, I think. And note that case is not just a Section 2 VRA claim. It is additionally an intentional racial gerrymandering case under the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. So it's a constitutional claim. And I just see everyone, all the conservatives on Twitter, yeah, epic opinion, because like the guy is unhinged. He's some boomer who's watched too much, I don't know, Limbaugh and Alex Jones, and has put like an insane amount of references to George Soros, Alex Soros, and Gavin Newsom. Recall, this is a case about what the Texas legislature did and what Governor Abbott did and Trump. It has nothing to do with George Soros from a legal perspective or Gavin Newsom, right? It's not like those are parties in the case or relevant to the legal analysis. And this unhinged Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals guy who's writing in dissent is just like, he's going after the other judges, who the lead judge he's going after is a Trump appointee who was appointed by Trump, and recommended by Cruz and Cornyn from Texas. And that's now the MAGA faithful have glommed onto that and be like, look, Cruz and Cornyn are trying to skull fuck Trump by fucking overturning, like Cruz and Cornyn want this to occur. Like that was their whole plan, was to embed this guy and know that he would by chance be drawn in a panel because they knew Abbott would be willing to go along with it. Like, it's so ridiculous. It's lies and conspiracy theories, like unbased in anything, all the way down. But they have it in their head that because they ruled against the Texas legislature, that this guy is now a rhino judge that they appointed. And they're all like, look, epic, Soros. Pam Bonnie's like, couldn't have said it better myself. Soros. Yeah, Gavin Newsom. We live in idiocracy. These people see Soros and like they soy the fuck out and pretend that it's a point, like it's at all a point. And even worse are these pretend commentators who pretend to get in the weeds of things. Examples of this include Will Chamberlain, include people like the Shipwreck Crew account on Twitter. Who's this other woman? Forget her name. She's blonde. Steve Bannon has her on sometimes. Steve Bannon, who we all, by the way, know was very close with Epstein after the allegations and has not gotten any flack for it at all from MAGA. Just noting that out there, that Epstein we have documented and provable evidence that Bannon was trying to massage Epstein's image in the press, that he was engaged with Epstein to try to do this and was trying to run PR for Epstein after his arrest, after all of the allegations. And he hasn't faced any kind of backlash for that. Wild. And I mean, it's wild, but it's true of Trump as well. There was someone on CNN who's like, I voted for Trump. Was an Epstein survivor, right? Like she claims to be a survivor. Some of these people, by the way, I just want to be honest. Some of these people's stories don't add up. Not saying every Epstein survivor is like that, but some of these stories don't add up. Anyway, I'm not saying it's of this particular woman. But this particular woman's like, I voted for Trump. Like, dude, you didn't know that he had these connections with the person who victimized you, who you say victimized you, and you voted for the guy anyway? Bannon as well. All that is to say, I saw one of these commentators, Shipwreck Crew, who all these MAGA losers cite as doing legal analysis. He gets a ton of shit wrong. First, he 90% of all these fake legal commentators are like, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal is going to step in immediately. And then, okay, dude, that's direct to the Supreme Court, follow the law. And he's like, oh, no, what I meant was that after the Supreme Court hears the case and rules on it, he's going to remand it. Okay, that's not immediately. That's not what you meant. They can't admit when they're ever wrong. It's never like they're unable to give ground on anything. So many people I meet are like that, like online. They just can't give ground. They see giving ground or admitting that, like, even just something is, oh, I didn't know. Yeah. They can't even do that. And then the guy says, well, once Trump rules, or sorry, what's the difference? Supreme Court rules on the Louisiana redistricting case, where they're considering the constitutionality of Section 2 of the Voter Rights Act, or the continued viability of it. They'll just remand this case to be in conformity with their decision on the Louisiana VRA case. These guys don't read. Yes, there are some VRA claims on the Texas case, but that's not what the lower court ruled on. Lower court ruled on racial gerrymandering, constitutional claim. They didn't. If you read the opinion at all, it says we are not ruling on the race dilution claims, either intentional race dilution claims or jingles. It explicitly said we're not ruling on this stuff. That's what the court said. Now, part of the fact pattern regarding the other rationale given by Texas and by Trump and the DOJ turns on the so-called coalition districts and whether or not they're cognizable under the Voting Rights Act. But that's just a very separate issue than Section 2's viability at all. Presumably, under VRA, like Section 2 viability questions are questions that are like subsequent to the VRA overall being constitutional. That is to say, the coalition district's element is subsequent to Section 2's overall viability. But regardless of that, they're going to have to rule on Texas's specific fact patterns. You're not going to be able to just get to the result that these people want in Texas by just doing the Louisiana redistricting case. You actually have to go look at the facts of the Texas case, because the Texas case, what was sustained, is not a VRA claim. It's a racial gerrymandering claim. But these guys are they're so deluded and stupid. And half of these MAGA reply people that have in my comments, they get their information from these fake analysts who don't even read the underlying documents that they're talking about. And they're already saying, wow, so based, this judge, and they don't know even a little bit about what's going on. All right. That, I think, is it for legal stuff. We'll do more legal stuff probably tomorrow, if I have time. Probably in the morning. Where was I? Oh, we're going to go to this debate by Wick TV. I think he's the host. And my understanding of what the topic is whether or not we ought to have a Nuremberg-style treatment post-Trump presidency. Now, I already think that presupposes a lot of things, which is that the Democrats are going to win in the next two election cycles. I think Democrats have a decent chance, but this is for the situation in which Democrats do win. But I don't want to be heard in analyzing this debate that I take it as like a given that Democrats will even win the midterms. I think that there's a good shot for the midterms, but I don't think it's a given. And as I repeated at the start of the stream, I think that I have said things that might cause me to be understood by a lot of people to think like maximum punishment for everyone all the way down. Because I've said things like, I think we should have a commission of truth on all of the corruption and illegality of the previous administration. I just don't see my statements previously to be coextensive with what people might mean by Nuremberg style. people might mean by Nuremberg style that we're doing executions and unalivings, and I'm generally not in favor of the death penalty. I'm against it. And there's some other interesting aspects of Nuremberg as well, which are Nuremberg was not just applying law that existed. Nuremberg was creating new law and applying it after the fact. Specifically, the notion of like war crimes, crimes against humanity, like that, right? Those were not, one of those categories might have been a thing. War crimes might have been a thing. But certain of the crimes that they were applying to the Nazis didn't exist at the time. They were creating the legal frameworks to apply that didn't exist at the time of the substantive offenses. And that is something that I'm uncomfortable importing into the United States. Is this kind of like post-fact, ex-post creation of doctrines by which to charge enemies or people we don't like. I don't like that. I am in favor of a constitutional amendment to restore the convictions of people who were pardoned by Trump in any capacity. That is something I would, but the procedure of that matters to me. And it matters to me, frankly, that these people had been charged and convicted or were in that process prior. And that there was a system of law that was then existing and had existed at the time that the substantive offenses happened. So there are ways in which you can interpret a Nuremberg-style thing in which I could be in favor of it if it just means like we're going to put on trial a lot of the criminality in a kind of demonstrative way to show the greater community that this shall never happen again. To that extent, I'm in favor of it. Unfortunately, that's probably going to have to take the approach of like a congressional inquiry, and frankly, probably not even criminal in most respects, because I'm going to assume that absent a constitutional amendment that undoes both the immunity doctrines, I think, improperly created by this administration, and Trump's what will surely be his attempt to pardon probably everyone by the time he exits office, that there will be no legal way to hold many of these people accountable absent that amendment. And I, as you might expect, am not in favor of undoing the Constitution or putting a hole in the Constitution for the purpose of punishing these people in a way the Constitution does not permit. So, yeah, it's going to depend how you defined Nuremberg style anything. That's going to... My bad. Editor cut if we make this into... How you define the Nuremberg style thing will probably determine how happy I am to take on that project or to support it. Apart from that, I think I'm going to be fair and balanced in how I judge the reviewer or the debaters. I'm going to see how they're interpreting the question and try to be both balanced and fair in who I think is winning. Okay. Any questions? And we're going to do 1.25. I've heard of word war debate.
I recognize your face, and I recognize Staxiums. I recognize that handle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
we chatted a few times.
Everybody ready? We're going to get this show on the road. Let's do it. Okay. Welcome.
Okay, so Wick isn't going to take a position. He's the moderator, I guess. Actually, I don't know who's going to take which position.
And all to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together, talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, we've got a show for you tonight. Today, the President of the United States tweeted out that members of Congress were guilty of sedition and should be hanged when they reminded U.S. servicemen and women that they should disobey illegal or unlawful orders. The question becomes, when Democrats retake the Senate, the House, the White House, when we win, what should be done about those who are currently in power and those who have supported those who are currently in power? What should be done with them who have broken the law or hinted at wanting to break the law? All these things. Should we, for the good of the country, come together, move on, move forward? Or should we have a Nuremberg-style kind of trial and hold these people to account to the fullest extent of the law? We're going to talk about it today.
But that's the question. To the fullest extent of the law, what do we suppose that's going to be, given the immunity doctrines and ability and availability of pardoning? And again, what I mentioned before, that Nuremberg wasn't just an application of then existing law; it was creation of new international law and crimes that didn't exist before.
We've got some great guests. First guest we're going to give it to is Staxiums. Staxiums, give us what you got.
Hey, yeah, I was hoping to maybe hear from them to understand what exactly I'm attacking, because it kind of depends on their positions. So I'll just kind of swing wide and say that Trump has been laying ground for the possibility of corruption by providing coverage for his political allies. I'll point to people like Roger Stone, him pardoning January 6 rioters, him pardoning George Santos. He's provided coverage for those.
I don't know what is the purpose in going through all this. I'm pretty sure this is stuff that everyone on this panel is going to grant. I don't think it's a good use of your time.
To give him money. I'll point to his corruption with the meme coin. And I also want to point to that when he was asked why he was pardoning CZ, Trump simply said, "I heard it was a Biden witch hunt, but I don't know who that is." And it seems like there are likely a number of people who are feeding the president information to curry their favor. I can focus on specific key members of his administration as to who specifically I think that we should be.
Why? I mean, they're just going to be granted. Everything like this is going to be granted. I mean, I guess maybe Prime. Oh, can I guess a Prime angle? Don't spoil this if this happened in the discussion. But I think Prime is going to say Biden and Kamala should be also charged as in a Nuremberg-style event for Gaza. Don't tell me if that happened, but my guess is that that's going to be the angle. You can tell me if it did say that. It's okay. You don't have
targeting. I guess maybe that sounds like an extreme word, but I don't feel like it's an extreme word. But I will say that according to a Washington Post analysis, Trump officials have allegedly defied court oversight in roughly 35% of more than 160 lawsuits. It would be bad for the country to provide an incentive for people like this to run it, I guess, is my position.
Well, thank you.
Wait, hold on. Wait, are you on our side? Who's on whose side here?
Yeah, I'm on your side. I think. I really want to hear what Connor and Prime have to say, because it really depends on.
Sure.
Are you half sides in this debate? Is this like a 2-on-2, or is it just like four of us are just kind of giving our opinions, or what?
No, it's a 2-on-2.
I'm also unclear about that. I think that all these people are going to grant Trump bad. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Prime's angle will be we should have another commission for other people. But that's not really the proposition. The proposition is, should we have one for these people? Not should we have them for more than one people? Unless he's saying we shouldn't have it for these people because that would be a double standard and I don't want a double standard. But that's kind of like a Rob Knorr style argument that I don't really see Prime is going to. I don't think it's likely. I think he just is going to use this as a soapbox about Gaza. Am I wrong?
I think I'm on my side.
Yeah, Staxiums, Destiny versus Counterpoints and Prime. Look, Staxiums, just
Oh
remember.
my God.
Staxiums, calm down with the questions. The last time you asked someone a question, bad things happen.
I don't like this. You know, Wick and I are cool. Wick and I have always been cool, except for that one time. I don't like this like swinging dick thing that some of these moderators do. Like, dude, stop asking questions. Calm down. Like, can you be just respectful? Can you be, So he's a little excited. He's on a big platform. He's with people. But you don't have to put him down. I just don't.
Don't want that to happen here, okay? We're going to keep
going.
This guy was the person who asked Charlie Kirk his last question. Just so you know, this is Staxiums, top right.
Nice, chill. But also, I asked the question, so it was like
Wait, I think there's like three different. I don't know if they're specifically saying crimes haven't been committed. I don't know if it's specifically that like they're saying it would be bad for the country to charge them, or if they're saying Nuremberg style is too far. So I kind of wanted to hear which of those three sides. I'm against all three of them, but I wanted to specifically hear which of those three sides they're on.
Okay, we're gonna get to it.
Why are you laughing like he said something ridiculous, Wick? I think he's trying to swing dick. And Wick, we are so cool. We've never been more. Wick and I have never been on better terms than we are now. But I think he's trying to like use paint Staxiums right now as like being this like, nervous little person.
Don't worry. Counterpoints. Go ahead. Why don't you educate the man?
Yeah, thank you. So I
Even educate them. Okay.
side with the intellectual PF Young in that Trump is a symptom, not the disease. He's a symptom of several factors that are out of control. I would say wealth inequality, rapid demographic change, existential technological shifts, and the dissolution of the social fabric
Oh
are the
God.
things that are pushing people towards radicalism. And so, once again, Trump is the symptom, not the disease. So, unless we start addressing those things, we're screwed because we're just going to have another Trump in another 4 years or another 8 years or another 10 years or 12 years. When it comes to Nuremberg, Nuremberg is obviously reminiscent or actually, I think, directly referencing the Nazi trials. Now, people have heard me. I've complained endlessly about the hundreds of thousands of people who have been killed by Trump's incompetence through the cuts of USAID and PEPFAR. I still would not assign the level of while hundreds of thousands of people, potentially millions, will die as a result of Trump's incompetence, I don't think it rises to the threshold of intentional industrial style genocide. And so I feel like I hope that's hyperbole. Also, I think that we should differentiate.
But that's not the question. I mean, that kind of presupposes that we should only have Nuremberg style things for industrial genocide. And I've talked a little bit about this, hinted it before. I think that this term industrial, in the context of the Holocaust, often betrays a kind of messiness and cleanness of the Holocaust that kind of downplays it a little bit. I don't know why we view this term like industrial as applicable in the Holocaust sense, if for any reason that most of the deaths that occurred in the Holocaust were like by CO2 and gunshot and just like going up in like these death squads and killing people. Yes, there were obviously the death camps were also a big percentage of them, but I don't know why industrial genocides, to the extent that we can define that term or say that that term is the best term to use in the Holocaust sense. Again, I think that there's a kind of like cleanness and assembly line notion that's implied there, where I think so much of what occurred in the Holocaust wasn't like that. It was people in fear and massive grave pits and honestly sometimes disorganized dysfunction and roving squads, as opposed to the typical portrayal of it where it was more kind of I guess organized, segmented, and multiple moving parts. But he's just going to have to, I think, give a case for why we should only have such events for industrial genocide. And recall again that really Nuremberg, in terms of reckoning with the genocide, it was seen by a failure, right? Like by many people, in that what was the focus of Nuremberg? A lot of it had to do with war crimes. And genocide, I think, is maybe mentioned. Remember, genocide is being defined around this time in one of the charges, but it's not something that's actually like an independent charge in and of itself within Nuremberg. And that's one of the reasons why the Eichmann trials are seen almost like as a more defining moment in recognition of the Holocaust as a particular source of evil. So I think that this is almost kind of like potentially an ahistorical view or problematic or contentious view of the Holocaust in what it entails, and also of Nuremberg, that Nuremberg was set to vindicate all the evils done by the Holocaust, when I don't think that that's how the trial's perceived. And certainly as far as the Allied powers are concerned, I remember this Hassan quote. Remember, Hitler wasn't bad because he invaded Poland. He was bad because from the Allies' perspective, the evil wrought by Hitler isn't just in the Nazis isn't just amountable to the intentional industrial genocide of European Jews. So I don't know. I kind of don't like this framing already. I think that there's both a failure to justify why we would only have such an event for industrial genocides, and then also contending with what Nuremberg was and what the Holocaust was. Does any of that make sense to y'all? Or do you agree with any of it? Disagree? Nuremberg was largely crimes of aggression, establishment of individual criminal. Yeah. I don't think that Nuremberg was so much about the crime of genocide. I think I forget the name of the person who was marshaling this concept of genocide. But he was disappointed that they didn't include it as an individual charge.
Could versus should, because we should do a lot of things. Like Destiny should just send me $100,000 via PayPal right now, but that's not going to happen, right? So could that happen? Sure. But what's actually going to happen is
But the question isn't what will happen. The question is what should happen. So if you grant that Staxiums and Destiny are correct about what should happen, then you grant the proposition. Right? Am I missing this? Why are people just conceding in their opening arguments? Now you could say something like, it shouldn't happen because it's impractical, and so we shouldn't try to happen. Or you could say something like, it should happen if everything was good, but like, I'm not going to advocate for it because, whatever, right? But saying that it should happen means it ought happen. And we ought do this is the proposition of the debate. So it sounds like he's conceding it.
Republicans are not going to want to impeach him. He's probably going to pre-pardon his entire administration and pre-pardon himself. And then the only thing that you could probably do is a January 6th style commission that I would actually be in favor of. But no, I don't think we're going to be able to hang these people. I don't think we're going to be able to criminally convict them.
We're not going to be able to is different than we ought.
I don't think that dragging it out for 2 years is a good idea. So that's what I'm here.
That's different, right? If you I don't think dragging it out for 2 years is worth it. That sounds like it's a contradiction on what ought happen, right? Assuming that this thing it would take 2 years
Here to fight on.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Let's give it to Prime next. Go ahead, Prime Guy.
I'm in Staxium's position. In that.
Oh shit!
So they all, except for Connor, agree. But even Connor agrees because he conceded.
In that I'm leaning no. All right, so I'm on Counterpoint's side. All right, for
What?
Steven's benefit.
I don't understand that. I'm with Staxiums, but I'm leaning no. Staxiums is leaning yes. Can any of...
But I'd like to hear the other side.
And Staxiums is like confused, like what the hell are you talking about? Because
to understand the arguments, their positions. Oh, and also just before that, I want to thank Wick for being so kind as to invite me. Glad to be here. And Prime and Destiny reunited after like 2 years. It feels so good. But anyway, thanks so much.
Oh, okay. I guess we'll go to
That was
Destiny then.
There needs to be big memes. I think that there are 2 parts to it, 3 parts maybe. The first part is the insurrection for every single person involved in this administration, mainly for the point that none of the people that are supporting Trump now in office should be allowed to run for office ever again in the United States of America. That's the first thing. The easy way to do this also is if Trump starts pardoning everybody, well, if he's pardoning people, pardon is admission of guilt, charge them with insurrection. You can charge them, consider them pardoned, and now they qualify for being charged, convicted, and they've been pardoned the crime. Doesn't matter. The pardon doesn't get rid of the part of the 14th Amendment that would say you can't hold an office again. So
I do not agree that everybody who's in the administration currently engaged in insurrection under the legal definition of insurrection. So I'll give you some examples. I don't think that there's any evidence to suggest that Pam Bondi engaged in insurrection. So any, some of the other major players here, I don't know that Dan Bongino engaged in insurrection. I don't think that JD Vance engaged in insurrection. So I don't think that this is viable for a lot of the evil that we're trying to get at. If we're trying to make recompense for Jan 6, I think we need to be calibrated on that. But that doesn't have to do with what's going on with this administration, or at least as much in the culpable sense. I don't think that we should make it a crime to support insurrectionists with like our vote, or to give political support to insurrectionists after the fact. I unfortunately think part of living in a free and open society is that we have to abide that support, which does not amount to engagement in an insurrection, and that would include things that like after the insurrection occurs and after it's over. And I think you have to consider that the insurrection ended at some point, that this kind of vocal support is acceptable. We had political leaders in the South who were former Confederates, and just supporting someone after the fact, after the insurrection is over, I think should not in and of itself be legally disqualifying. I am in favor of civilly enforcing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, and Congress should immediately pass enforcement legislation that doesn't only turn on a criminal conviction. So to the extent that Stephen is saying this, I agree with that. But I don't think that it would be possible to charge people with crimes after they have been pardoned. And so you won't be able to get to a point of a determination of liability on engagement into insurrection through the current criminal statute on insurrection if everyone is pardoned. That's just going to die. There's not going to be a way to do that. And so I think you should be in favor either of an impossible to achieve amendment, undoing all the pardons and having reciprocal effects, or like reinstating people's charges or reinstating their criminal processes. That would be an Herculean effort to get the amendment, and then to hire everyone to redo the cases and get the paperwork they probably fucked with, etc. Right? And the evidence might be stale. It'll be a mess to try to do that. And then also to have potentially an easier path legislation to civilly enforce Section 3s. But again, that's going to be more tailored to the insurrection that occurred. And the insurrection that occurred was on January 6th. That's when the insurrection occurred. After that, I don't think that this proposition, though it's not the only one that he's offered, will target the kind of evils of the current administration. It'll be, in other words, limited to the insurrection that occurred, which was under Trump's first term. But again, it's not his only proposition. It's one that I think is necessary. I think that we do need to have some way to cope with that and address it. And I think that implementing legislation for Section 3 is great, but it's not going to target everyone who should be targeted in terms of punishment.
Welcome. So that's number 1 and 2, okay? Number 3, the smallest criminal thing, investigate every single person part of his administration and get as much out into the open as possible. I think the important thing about stuff like Nuremberg, the important thing about these big public trials is there needs to be a public accounting of everything that's happened. And for whatever causes lead into people wanting to vote for Trump, they are absolutely fed into by the misinformation, by the historical rewrite of everything that's happened. And we need to be able to have an honest account of what's happened historically. Right now, half the country doesn't believe that Trump lost the 2020 election. Like, we can't go forward in an environment like that, and simply changing leadership in the conservative party is not going to undo all of the incorrect things that Republicans believe have happened. Trump was not a mistake. Like, Trump was a natural consequence of Republican demagoguery and Republican rhetoric and Republican strategy for the past 3 decades. It's no surprise we wound up here, and to act like it would be to ignore the fact that Trump too could come, right around the corner.
Okay, and does that educate everyone on everyone's position, or is everyone clear now?
Yeah, just none of that sounds like Nuremberg style. I would agree with a lot of that, but it just sounds like, okay, we have a commission to discover and publicly put out what happened. To the extent that we can charge things criminally, we should be super on that, and I totally agree with that. And then we should have some way to implement Section 3. If that's the proposals, I agree with each one of those.
Can we move forward, or do we need further edification?
I mean, we'll get it as we continue. I'll ask a question if I can, please. Right. So, Stephen, hello.
Oh,
hi.
no. Is this Biden? Is Biden?
The last part of what you said talked about revealing the truth, right? Like correcting the record. And I'm certainly not against that. But like, it seems like you're specifically trying to correct the record for the Trump cult. Do you believe that public trials will actually do that?
Yeah, I think if the information is out there, I think it becomes much harder to ignore what's actually happened. Yeah, I think it helps.
Information's out there now, right? It's been out there.
Not like in an easily accessible way. It's like buried behind PDFs and buried behind commissions and buried behind stuff that, one, it didn't get the full public attention that it deserves, and then two, the people who denied all of that information were rewarded by still being able to run for office and hold office. I think that if you do this mass like insurrection charge or whatever you have to do to get all these people to never be allowed to run for again, then there will be, going forward, probably more of an incentive to be like, well, fuck, maybe we shouldn't just.
I think what he's saying is like we want more attention to this. So I agree with some of the question that Prime's asking here. That is like, if your contention is the information is not out there, a lot of the information we're talking about is out there. That said, a lot of it's not getting attention, and I think that Stephen wants more attention. But also, there's some stuff we don't know and we don't have investigations on. Like all the stuff that's happening right now. We're not getting the full story from all these people. We don't have the internal comms on all these people. And so additional investigating is necessary for the second Trump term. On the election stuff, yeah, we have enough out there for sure. But there's publicity, I think, is entailed by what we're talking about here with the Commission on Truth, and additional fact-finding that needs to happen for this term where we're not getting the full story.
Lie blatantly about everything that's happened because there are going to be political consequences for us down the road.
I can agree with the last part, but I disagree with the first part. The information is absolutely out there. Like that did Trump's was the 2020 election stolen? No, right? Documentaries galore, videos out there, right? Like news segments about all of that exists, right? Articles, digital ink spilled. Yet it persists. So I don't. I disagree, at least for now. I can be convinced otherwise. But I disagree that simply having some grand trial where the heroes of MAGA are put before right? A tribunal where they can be, where Fox News can position them as heroes against the resurgent Democratic regime, right?
That's an interesting thought on like backfire and blowback. It's an interesting thought. I almost think that like it doesn't matter for a certain segment of the targets, so to speak. There needs to be blowback, as in there needs to be a kind of specific deterrence, on the kind of actor that has helped bring us into this position that is swayable, not in the sense of the general public, but knowing that if you try this, you could see blowback. So that, I think, is a different segment of the population. I do think the next administration can't just focus on relitigating the past stuff in the previous administration. I think they need to work on positive projects, but I would be in favor of both of those things. So it's a good thing to point out. But the only audience isn't just like the general public. It's also actors that need to be specifically deterred.
I disagree that will necessarily lead to a brand new age of truth for the MAGA cult. No.
Are you against criminal prosecution writ large?
Absolutely not. Oh, absolutely not. I can assure you I'm not.
Okay, what if we find
abolish?
Like
wait! Don't you want to abolish the police, Prime? I seem to recall the particular conversations we've had back in the day.
Official is criminally liable.
No, Stack. The thing that I'm pushing back against right now, is simply that the claim that he's saying this will edify the MAGA cult. I don't think that will. I'm not sure anything can actually do that.
I think that if the Mar-a-Lago case would have gone through, I think that would have been very damaging to him, and it would have been much harder to deny everything that happened there. But a lot of people,
I think it's cope.
Don't even know the details of it because that court case never happened. I think it would have been good for.
I think that's cope. I think that like the general American public, if the trial played out on Mar-a-Lago, that would have fundamentally changed their, like, no one read the Her report, it feels like, except for me and a couple other commentators, and it didn't really change anyone's mind on Biden. Obviously, Trump's is way worse, but that was available, right? Like, Trump's actions on Mar-a-Lago, that was available, and I don't think the full airing out in the trial, I mean, this is kind of like, I don't think that was going to break the cult.
For that to happen.
Okay, sorry, I just have to mute myself in two locations, but I do want to jump in. So can we separate out like probability versus should real quick? So probability, if we had to put it on a probabilistic scale of like 0 to 100, what Staxiums and Destiny, what do you think the probabilistic scale is that this, like, even there's even the political will for this?
We haven't even defined what this is. This, that, like the three proposals that Stephen has put forth.
Oh, probably quite low, I would say. Unfortunately,
I think it's decent that the next administration is going to be looking at the past administration, and if Democrats control Congress, that they're going to do their investigations. Enforcement of Section 3, I think, is probably the least likely there, and certainly any kind of like criminal culpability is probably the least likely. That's just because of the structure of the executive branch and in the pardon power. I think that's it. But I don't think it's like crazy unlikely to think that the next president is going to investigate what happened before and release information on it.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree.
Okay, so what we're really talking about is like moral should. We're just this is an ideal. Well, ideally, I would fire Trump from a trebuchet into the Atlantic Ocean. Okay,
So ideally, you would kill Trump, is what Connor is saying. He's Fed posting. I mean, like, you're basically saying that you agree with the proposition to some extent, unless you want to limit it to Trump.
That's what I would do. You're not going to find anybody sweeping for the Trump admin on this side of the aisle. I think what we're talking about is now that we've eliminated that.
On this side of the aisle being, you mean on this debate? Yeah.
As I am not legally permitted or morally permitted to fire Trump out of a trebuchet into the Atlantic Ocean. Now we can kind of move into like what's politically pragmatic about the situation. And when you appeal to pragmatism, I actually don't think that the Nuremberg style trials would be helpful at all. I think you would be creating a cult of personality. I think you'd be creating a persecution complex, especially without criminal convictions.
So then why do you agree with it? I don't ever understand this. Like, it's the right thing to do, but it would cause all of this societal rot and destruction. But it should happen, right? Like, I understand what's good to happen. The good is like what we ought do. So he's like, if we did this, it would cause all sorts of problems and destroy our society. So in what sense do you think it's good?
Especially without the mass insurgency thing. You can do the January 6th style committee where you document all of the alleged crimes and probable crimes.
And that's not going to create a victim complex and have pushback? I think
to
that's
the Trump
garbage.
administration, but without convictions and without prohibitions from office, I think this is a waste of political capital. And I think that what's going on, like I said, is that there are 4 sociological variables that are contributing to people being radicalized. And if we don't address those, and if we don't spend political capital on those, we're fucked.
Well, I would say that one, these for the Mar-a-Lago thing, for instance, that would be a trial. Like, I'm sure there are chargeable offenses here that we can literally have a trial and have people locked up for.
Oh, I mean, if we just want to charge people for crimes, then yeah, I mean, like, I don't know that. I think we should test whether or not Trump is like, we should still have the Jack Smith prosecution of Trump afterward. That's an easy no-brainer, and that's one area where unless Trump resigns shortly before, he might do this motherfucker. They probably will do this. They will probably do this. Trump is going to resign like the day of his presidency ends, and he's going to get J.D. Vance to pardon him. Right? In what world does he not do that? But if he doesn't, we should charge him.
For one. And number two, I think I would argue that one of the big things that is a sociological variable playing into the decision-making of these people on the right is that there really is no punishment for acting the most unhinged way possible. They're still allowed to hold office. They're allowed to lie with impunity. There's no punishment. Like, going forward, if there's not a reckoning, you would be an idiot as a conservative to not act in the same manner because you've constantly been rewarded for it.
I don't agree with that, actually. So sure. I think that what's happened, at least this is my view on it, the Trump cult has painted itself into a corner where they...
I don't think that we can... I mean, I think I agree with Connor here that, like, there's a way to move on as a society, given all this misconduct. We did in the Civil War. Right? We let a bunch of criminal insurrectionists basically off. We pardoned them. We removed the consequences for their treason. Some people got punished, but not nearly enough. That said, we did live with the consequence of that for years and years and years. But eventually, we were able to. We didn't fall apart from the seams. But I also can get the counter argument where it's like not punishing people after the Civil War created massive problems. So maybe there's a point here. I mean, I would agree with Steven.
Put all of their hopes and energy and political capital into a single man, a very flawed man, someone who at minimum within the next 6 months is going to be probably exposed as either covering for an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring or participated in an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring. Those are like covered for is the best case scenario. Steve Bannon was communicating with Mr. Jeffrey Epstein as recently as 2017. Like, I think there might even be some text messages from 2019. And, Steve Bannon was Trump's campaign manager. So the whole point about this is, like, he's about to take a huge black eye. In the midterms, the Republicans are probably going to get shellacked. And then when he's gone, there's nobody who commands the same level of Trump cult of personality. And I think J.D. Vance has been tapped on the shoulder as the next, like, MAGA prince. But I think that J.D. Vance is an infinitely more pragmatic person than Trump ever was.
I don't disagree with you, but it doesn't...
Is he just yapping about something that's not responsive to the proposition?
Change anything I'm saying. Like, if you're J.D. Vance, or if you're anybody in the next part of the Republican establishment, whatever comes after MAGA, if you see that the last part of the establishment got completely screwed by acting in just a blatantly illegal manner, then you have less incentive to do so. But if you see they got away with so much stuff, then that's all going to be in your playbook. Like, okay, well, what rules can I break or bend?
But I don't think he has the riz. I don't think he has the riz to
Vance doesn't, but Trump did. Nobody knew that Trump was even coming. Who's to say there's not going to be somebody like Trump in the future?
I mean, the argument right there is whether or not the dissident right wing or the Christian nationalists are going to produce a Trump-like figure who's charismatic to win in mainstream politics. I mean, that's what Nick Fuentes is hoping on, actually. Sure,
but if somebody produces that figure, they're more likely to, ascend to the throne and operate in an unhinged manner if they feel like there's no punishment for doing so.
Well, I agree, but then, okay, so right now, let's talk about it from a process of function, okay? So we have a process of function where effectively what you're saying is we could still do, if they did mass pardons of the Trump admin, what would you charge Marco Rubio for as the person who was running the Department of State under Trump too?
I think if they... Historically, a pardon has been seen as an admission of guilt. It's part of it. So if they are pre-pardoned, then I would just formally just charge them all with insurrection and then say that they're pardoned from it. And then at the very least, that bars all of them from running for any public office again.
Charge Rubio with insurrection? He didn't engage in insurrection. Rubio arguably was, I know that he obviously, like, is a disgusting piece of shit, but he was being insurrected against. No. You need to show that there's an insurrection. What's the insurrection? The insurrection is... the thing is, you have to live and die by the legal definition that I know that I influenced him on, and that I think is correct and accurate based on the standard notion of insurrection. So you need to have an actual insurrection, and running the State Department in a despicable way isn't an insurrection.
But what's your evidence? Because as far as I know, Marco Rubio wasn't involved in the fake elector scheme or January 6, 2021. So what is your
Yeah.
evidence
He's a part
that
of it. He
Marco
supports the
Rubio
current
participated in insurrection?
That's not
He
insurrection.
participates in the current administration.
It's not
And
insurrection.
He's more or less a supporter. He's a cabinet
How
member.
The
just to be
administration is
clear,
being
how
elected,
far does
that's
that go
not a joke.
down? So we obviously the
Every single
cabinet.
elected person in the Republican Party right now.
No.
Say,
Except
repeat that one more time.
Trumpers. Every single person in the Republican Party right now, except for like the never Trumpers. So like your Massey's, I guess, maybe your
Yeah,
No.
that's obviously political suicide, wasting political
Good.
capital.
No,
It's-
I mean,
it's effectively a
that
meme
literally is defining insurrection as supporting Trump. So that's crazy. No.
position. It's not even a real position.
Okay, so
I thought the main position was where we pretended that the 2020 election didn't happen, and then we doubled down on every single thing we believe, but then we still managed to win in 2025. I thought that was the main position. But
Are you saying even like state senators, like not even national positions?
yep.
Yeah,
so
so
That's crazy.
disbarring half
City
of
council.
the political process is not an option.
wait, hold on. So city council, right? You would
Welcome.
say
If they're
All
Trumpers,
of
hell
them.
yeah.
Well, city
Okay,
council
let-
people very rarely position themselves in party.
I mean, no, people run. Anyone who runs. He's saying anyone who runs on the R ticket, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah, but city
Except for
council
quote
members
unquote
usually
never
don't
Trumpers.
have our tickets.
I understand that. I'm saying, but the point is, he's saying everyone, right? So mayors, right?
Okay.
Whatever.
Anybody that
mayors,
supported Trump,
anyone-
if they weren't actively calling out the Trump admin, if they were ever playing into it, whatever,
So what's defining the scope of your culpability for purposes of insurrection is your political allegiance and even statements after the insurrection, even reluctant support for Trump. No.
then they're going. They're part of it.
Hold on.
Good luck with
Listen,
that, Sachs.
so I'm gonna let
Including, like, I guess this would include Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, who is still a sitting member of Congress, who voted against the impeachment or the conviction, but supported condemning him. I mean, that's a kind of hard case. And like, oh, did you engage in insurrection based on your after insurrection speech because you politically support? No.
prime talk, but I know why I would feel that way. Why the fuck do you feel that way?
What do you mean? Because I think that all of these people have contributed to an authoritarian regime that is the most anti-American regime in U.S. history that has almost brought our country to the edge of destruction.
Okay,
In that sense, if he's defining a new crime of insurrection to be supporting a previous insurrectionist politically, then maybe that's in some sense a Nuremberg style in that it's not a crime currently. Like, these things aren't crimes currently and don't fit the legal category of insurrection.
but at the same time, we have, when it comes to like the deportations of Andre Hernandez Romero or Kilmar Abrego Garcia, ultimately the courts were still able to reel them in. When it comes to January 6, 2021, and by the way, I'm not defending Trump. I think we should fire him from a trebuchet into the Atlantic Ocean. But when you're talking about this process, Marco Rubio, to my knowledge, did not participate in January 6, 2021. And what he's guilty of is overseeing the decommission of USAID and PEPFAR, which is going to lead to approximately between 3 million and 14 million preventable deaths worldwide. That's like a man-made Holocaust through incompetence, but I can't think of I don't know how you would charge him with insurrection for participating in the Trump admin related to being a dickhead. Like that, these things are
He
not
aided and
connected.
abetted the enemies of the state by being a cabinet member for Trump.
No. Aid and abetting the United States under Section 3? No. Don't agree.
And doing his bidding.
Wait, but then,
Because if anyone defines who is an enemy of the United States, I don't think it's necessarily the president, but surely the people, right? The people of the United States are the ultimate sovereign of the United States. We the people. And Trump's election to the presidency, administered federally by a Democratic president and overseen by the same processes that took place in 2020, by all metrics Democratic, the will of the people, as it could be ascertained, was that Trump should get a second term. That wisdom, I think, is severely in question. Dumb, very bad situation. But I don't think that mere support for, the American people, according to the Constitution, they're deciding who is an enemy of the United States, and they decided to put Trump in the Oval Office again. I think that is, therefore, not cognizable as an enemy of the United States just because you do. And I guess you would also put all of the business and institutional actors who work with Trump now in that category.
now you're just playing into now this is just the tit for tat bullshit. We're effectively like, what is it? Today, the Democrats did a 1-minute video, which I approve of, by the way, saying, hey, military service members, hey, members of the intelligence community, you are sworn to an oath of the Constitution of the United States, and you have to remember your oath, and you should not follow illegal orders. Donald Trump, as Wick mentioned, said, these people are guilty of sedition, And the punishment of sedition is death. Okay, so all you're doing is you're just playing into, in my opinion, this this hysteria that every single political fight is existential.
Well,
So-
except it is on that side. They're the ones that are saying that everything is existential while they're being existential. That's part of their existential fight, is by saying
No,
everything is
you're
existential.
making it existential by saying that if you had the power, then you would disbar them from politics and wielding power altogether.
Yeah, but I think I have a good reason for that. They don't have a good reason to say we should execute sitting senators and congressmen.
So,
Okay.
we'll
Sorry, Brian,
get
go
back
ahead,
to
but I got plenty.
I'm sure he's given us plenty, right? But I got one question for each of our friends here. One to Staxium. I want to pull you in. I want to hear your beautiful voice.
For sure.
How much of this do you agree with? I mean,
Yeah, well,
so to be clear, hold on,
sure.
just let me ask the question, right? Yeah, to be
Yeah,
clear,
for sure, go.
what Stephen has said is that everyone who has supported Trump, right? I'm assuming he means everyone in office, but I'm not entirely clear on that
True.
either.
I think
but,
he said in office.
Okay, well, everyone in office.
Wait,
right?
what would that other?
Like anyone who
Even
voted
down-
for him, would we bar
well,
people who voted?
Yeah, but if
for
you vote
Trump?
for them, that's also
Yeah, like how would you distinguish, as a matter of insurrection, office holders from non-office holders or key political supporters? Say, for example, Charlie Kirk. Is he engaging in insurrection by getting people to vote for him when he was alive? Yeah, I think there needs to be a tailored crime here. And the problem is where any crime that we have probably won't map on to most, I don't know, senators or congresspeople in Congress right now. And it won't be so limited to not include supporters. Yeah,
support,
The
right?
200 million
Support-
people. I assume Steven doesn't think those.
We can just ask him,
we
he's
should
here.
just- We shouldn't
true.
assume logic from
Yeah,
him.
it wouldn't be every single person that voted for him, because they're
Why?
not. They're also for
Okay,
the
good.
insurrection thing. You have to be a prior oath taker, so you'd have to.
Well, okay, but you're saying that they committed the crime of insurrection. And the crime of insurrection, yeah, maybe you can't apply the negative effect of Section 3 to them. But are they guilty of insurrection? Are they insurrectionists, in other words? If you just support Trump.
Who've held public office, and we can't access people's votes.
Yeah,
so.
okay. I'm not taking
Thank you.
Steven literally. I'm taking him seriously. Okay.
I'm taking it literally and seriously. You
Oh
take it
my
both. I'm not Trump. I don't
God.
need a translator or to speak like
So
Richard.
does-
So.
Okay, so Staxium, right? Do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
agree?
My
with
implication
that,
being that Trump speaks like a retard. I wasn't attacking anybody on the panel. That was my thing.
No, that's fine. No worries.
Yeah, Staxiums, do you
No,
agree with?
Sorry,
Yeah,
Go,
yeah,
go. You guys go.
No, sorry. I was waiting for him to finish his question. Yeah. So the first thing that I'm going to point out is I felt like Connor was attacking this idea that like just because it was Nuremberg, like we're calling it the Nuremberg trials, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're like making that equivalent to what the Nazis did. Like obviously what this administration is doing is not as bad as the Holocaust, but I definitely, that's why I definitely wanted to hear where people's opinions were, because this is actually, I might even say more extreme than the Nuremberg trials, because weirdly enough, the Nuremberg trials, people were found innocent. Like I think like a quarter of them, maybe a fifth of them, were found innocent, even like high-ranking officials. And I'm genuinely curious, Stephen, like what do you feel like the Nuremberg trials didn't go far enough? Like if you were an official, you should have just been sent off to.
The important part, I think, about the Nuremberg trials was exposing everything that happened under the Nazi regime, right?
Okay, great.
That was an important takeaway.
I'm
then
for that, but I disagree
I'm
with
for
your
that.
with how specific, like the fact that any law official, any government official, including like state senators who just voted R and weren't critical of Trump. No, I don't agree with that. Prime, does that answer your question?
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that.
That feels
then-
extreme.
fair enough. All right,
But
so
I'm certainly for an extreme
I don't know who you're talking to, Jay. Oh, you're talking to JC, my bad.
sense of justice and subpoenaing, and is that the verb?
Subpoenaing!
Subpoenas.
Subpoenas.
I think
No,
Steve is out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, regardless, I'm for chucking the book at virtually every Trump official in his
Okay.
administration.
I think
To
it's only
the-
now you have to send the subpoena. Okay,
To the extent that they've done crimes, I assume.
but to
All right now I'm aligning most with Staxium's.
Stephen, you said specifically you had a carve out there said except for never Trumpers. How do we determine a person's a never Trumper?
Look at their
All
Twitter.
people that took at great risk to their own career positions against Trump. So Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger.
Look at their public positions.
Massey, maybe Rand Paul. Maybe. Yeah.
Sure, hold on. Yeah, but
Massey's an insane person.
I hear you on those, right? That's fair. But since we're talking about all elected Republicans, could you tell me the never Trumpers that have run in Orlando, Florida?
Nope.
No, you can't. Okay, all right. So how do we? So above the top line, right? Above below the federal line, how do we determine these individuals? Because all of them may not have been very public, but maybe they didn't. They had private thoughts. They said something to their friends. Is
Yeah, I
that
don't
enough?
like
I said
this.
I disagreed with Trump to
You
my
can
friends.
consult the record. They're public officials, so they should have public
Go
statements.
through their
So it would be pretty
Twitters.
exceptional for them to have no public statements.
Yeah, it's a whiff of fascism here. Go through their public statements to see if they politically support Trump, and if they do, charge them with insurrection, even if it's just for purposes of complying with Section 3. What complies with Section 3 is your mere support for Trump even after the insurrection is over.
Yeah, but Thomas Massie
Well,
voted with the Republicans 91% of the time. Like he's still in lockstep as far as Trump's agenda goes when it comes to securing the border, when it comes to the big beautiful bill, when it comes to this, when it comes to that. I mean, he might have fought it at some point, but once again, 91% voting record that aligns with Trump over the past decade.
To that point,
Okay, you can get
sorry,
rid of
just
them
to
too, if
throw
you want, sure.
to throw something. What about Fetterman as well? Would he be
Yeah,
liable for this?
Yeah, because he's like normalized.
Yo,
I mean, I
this is
definitely didn't want that
crazy.
guy, but
This
like,
is
I don't know if he's
crazy.
liable for
this
the.
psycho shit. This is my party
insane.
should rule indefinitely without challenge, and I think it's crazy.
Sure.
I think
So
there's no rooting in
But this is
reality.
why I'm trying to get. That's why I'm asking about details here, right? To like really nail down what the hell we're talking about. Okay, so you're saying they have to have made public statements. Okay,
Oh no.
if they were elected within, was it 2027 is the last year of his
This is, I think, one of the most effective cross-examinations that I've seen Prime do. Oftentimes Prime gets like interrupted by people and it pisses him off, and my sense is that he'll get like angry and less effective in his cross-examination or his like internal critique or whatever, but he's gotten some road to walk here, and I think he's doing a pretty good job at exposing some of the issues as well, because both Connor and basically everyone now is against the extent to what is being proposed.
his reign, right? So if they're elected in 2027, a Republican, right? Do they count? Right? Are they up for these trials as well?
Well, and if they ran under a Trump ticket, sure. If they were like supportive of Trump, yeah.
Okay,
Oh
hold on.
my
That's not
God.
exactly honest because
That's fucked.
Fetterman has been also very against Trump. Like he's made a lot of public statements
He signed a bill though.
like rejecting Trump. But you also said that Fetterman should go too.
Fetterman should be
I'm
I
curious
think a lot
what
of statements are, I don't know.
disallowed
I don't
from
know, some
office.
particular issue. Whatever the particular thing is, if you want to concede the argument that you agree that we should do this, and now you just want to argue over the specifics of like who should be included, that's fine. For 90% of elected people, it's going to be plainly obvious. How you would
I
determine
agree with you.
the edges, we could leave it up to a
that
court
we
to
should do
decide.
this.
We could leave it up to a court to decide, or we could leave it up to a commission to decide, or whatever. But like, I mean, I'm not going to say like, oh, actually, I'm going to change my mind on this entire idea because there's going to be some edge cases that are difficult to decide.
No, that's fair.
I
I-
don't concede that
No, it's not
55%
that.
of the Republican Party should be barred from voting indefinitely. I don't concede that. I think that's
Voting.
Yeah,
I'm
it's-
not saying. But who said voting? I just said holding office again.
okay. Okay, 55%. 55% of the Republican Party voted in order to elect Trump as a first choice during the primary. Let's just say that correlates up to the Republican Party, where 55% of the representatives support Trump wholeheartedly as a first choice. I think that separating those people from politics is fucking insane.
I don't think that, but I think doing it over with no legal basis to do so, which I think there is none. I think that's insane. But I think making everyone who supported Trump, including, by the way, Fetterman in his mild way, anyone, like that should be a stain, and that should be like, it should be a mark of shame. It should be a taboo to ever say that you like broke bread with this guy, that you supported this guy. So I'm in favor of excising these people from politics, but not illegally with no basis.
So I think it matters here, right? So that like if let's pretend I'm a Republican, right? Let's pretend I'm in office, right? If you're saying there's a way out here, well, I care about that way out. Oh, I'm a never Trumper too. I mean, I was always a never Trumper. Didn't you hear me say? Right? Like maybe on some website somewhere, I said something critical about Trump. Doesn't that count?
Many Death Eaters say they were only doing you-know-who's bidding under the effects of the Imperious Curse. How do we separate the liars? I'm going to say I'm a never Trumper too. I was a never Voldemorter.
These are public officials. They make public statements. They have public offices. They put out public press releases. These are not random individual private citizens. The definition of
This
these are
is
public
already so
officials.
absurd that we could just go ahead and concede like a hypothetical in which we were able to perfectly discern every single never Trumper versus every single Republican. It's still a stupid fucking idea.
Boom, I agree.
It's still
Okay,
a nice idea.
we'll do that. Let's
Hold on.
do that.
I have a question. When you, and this is for Destiny, if this is the public position that you're advocating for, what incentive does any Republican or anyone who's ever held office under Trump have to ever denounce Trump? Does this not just make them more incentivized to always support Trump? Because if they don't and Trump loses and the Democrats win, then they know that they're never going to have power again. So why would they ever?
Yeah, he's become
concede
the
anything?
boogeyman that the Republicans pretend he is.
Yeah, no, that this whole
I
thing
am-
of like he's become the boogeyman is like
I
raping
am-
someone over and over again, saying this person is physically abusive, this person is physically,
Oh,
and the
God.
12th time you rape them, they punch you and they go, look at that, you've become the violent person I said you always were. I'm sorry, that's fucking retarded. Also, I don't know why you're speaking hypothetically, Wick. Do people have to support Donald Trump? Otherwise, if they don't, they feel like they're going to be held criminally liable for things. That's literally the entire story of the entire Republican Trump administration. How many people in pardon that have committed crimes either directly on his behalf or on behalf of his administration or just other crimes and then end up supporting him? Like the Republicans already have this thought process and it needs to be exterminated. The thought process, not the people.
Wait, hold on. This is such okay. The reason why this is such bullshit is because I feel like you just either don't understand or don't want to understand the MAGA narrative and why it's appealing to Americans. The whole narrative is that since World War II, we have had a runaway federal government.
Wait, I can do my so Connor, chill. When Connor starts to get mad, he starts to want to monologue about history and like give you the whole like 80,000-foot view. He'll be like, back in the ancient Paleolithic era, we were hunter-gatherers, right? And we decided collectively to gather together. Like, bro, you don't need to give the whole outlook for Trump's appeal.
Has grown and grown and grown and grown outside of the Constitution. The Republicans have been playing footsie with the Democrats forever, and as a result, we now have a wrecking ball. So regardless of whether or not you think Trump is a good person or a bad person, things like cutting PEPFAR and USAID, that's good on a principled stance because billions of dollars shouldn't be going overseas to help people who aren't American. Slashing the DOE, deconstructing the Department of Education. Well, the federal government, realistically, we're 50, relatively speaking, sovereign states.
Does anyone want to hear about this?
Who should be deciding our own local affairs. Well, that's a good thing because the DOE, since it's gutted, it's now giving local control to education. You can say that those stories are bullshit. You can say it's nepotism. You can say it's cronyism. You can say all the corrupt things, and I'm probably going to agree with you 7 out of 10 times. But that doesn't mean that people with Americans, especially with the First Amendment, with freedom of speech and freedom of conscience, that doesn't mean that that opinion or behavior should be made illegal. That's fucking insane. That's insane. You yourself are advocating for a position that's contradictory to the Republic of the United States. It makes
all right. He landed the plane. Good for Connor. Connor, I didn't know what the other shit was about, but he landed the plane. Nice.
fucking sense.
Literally not. We literally have an amendment that literally bars people
for insurrection, for engagement in insurrection. But what you've described is not mere engagement in insurrection.
from committing insurrection and holding public office again. So I think my opinion.
Okay, how has Marco Rubio committed?
All right, and so now we're going to get into a legal analysis, and I'm afraid Destiny's going to be cooked on this one, provided he doesn't use a debate trick or Connor doesn't like soy out and start saying irrelevant stuff. But Connor, he's like I think he's more self-aware. I think he's going to be able to. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. He lands the plane here because this should be a very strong. This should be a very strong argument you have.
Insurrection.
By supporting an insurrectionist.
Mere support for an insurrection is enough to be yourself an insurrectionist, even after an insurrection took place.
That's not
so. Is it your position that Marco Rubio, right? Because in order to say you engage in an insurrection, you need to want it to occur, or you have to want to improve it in some way, right? And so you need to make a case that Marco Rubio supported Jan 6. Because after an insurrection is over, mere support for an insurrectionist after the fact, I don't think that you can make a good argument that like counts as engagement in insurrection any more than supporting the pardoning, or maybe he does think supporting the pardoning of insurrectionists itself is insurrection. But then that would counter with like our historical precedent on the Civil War. Like post-Civil War, there was mass amnesty. Did we think that was insurrection when there? Maybe he does.
not insurrection.
It definitionally is. Read the text of the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Aiding
Nope.
and abetting. It's part of an insurrection. Yeah, there's no difference
Okay.
between
As part of an insurrection.
He
He hasn't
insurrection,
even
insurrection,
abetted a person
insurrection.
actively participating in an insurrection. Trump hasn't been
Donald
convicted
Trump.
of insurrection.
You don't have
It didn't have to be convicted. That's Connor. Just stick to the facts of Rubio.
to be convicted for the amendment. But
What people will often do in these discussions, I feel, is they'll try to go for a shortcut, like some kind of weird procedural shortcut. That will, I think, sometimes make the case in court. But when you're arguing about oughts and stuff, Yeah, I wouldn't go for the shortcut. Because if you lose on the shortcut because you just say something that you're not prepared for, oh, he wasn't convicted of insurrection. I think that you're potentially taking some L's you don't need to take, especially if you're not steeping the issues.
But we can
And
convict
by
by
the way,
just
I'm
charging
granting
crime.
you that there's
If he's
some
talking about crime, he's already
role
pled and he's already been.
One at a time. One at a time,
I don't
please.
even
Let
grant-
Destiny. Hold on. Let Destiny finish
no.
this point, then you can respond. Go
If
ahead.
he's pardoned, if
Good
he's pre-pardoned,
moderating.
then he's guilty. Then you just say charge him with it, have him be pardoned. Nothing happens. Then you bar him from running for office.
You can't charge someone who's pardoned for something. You need some other mechanism, but I suppose there would be like a proposed Section 3 enforcement.
Again,
Oh, okay. So Hunter, right now, because you're being consistent, you're just going to go ahead and accept the fact that Hunter is guilty of FARA violations, tax violations, money laundering.
You're right. Both charged and uncharged. I don't think this is a good look for Connor because he's kind of dodging. The point isn't, right? And this is a mistake from Connor. Connor sees a shiny object, which is to try to grill Steven on Hunter Biden and grant him a win on pardon equals you accepted culpability for a crime. And so he's going to go for Hunter or Fauci or some of these other people who, whatever. But that's just grant, right? Just grant for the purposes of this discussion that, a pardon entails acceptance of a crime or something. Well, does a pardon that's tailored to a specific time frame entail a acceptance of a crime that happened before? But even beyond the whole pardon entails acceptance, just get to the meat of it, the core of it, which is how do you make out a case of insurrection against Marco Rubio? It's hard. Rubio was in Congress at the time the building was being stormed. Surely, if he was trying to aid and assist in the insurrection, there would be some evidence of that.
And corruption on behalf of the Biden family, right?
Sure, Hunter Biden can never run for public office again. I'll be consistent on that.
Okay.
No, but he's not a previous oath taker. I hate that. I mean, he's granting it because it's. But Connor also puts himself out there by bringing up some completely irrelevant thing where, yeah, he's not going to protect Hunter there. It's a kind of disingenuous throwaway and concession here because Hunter, not a previous oath taker, Hunter, there's no connection between his crime, alleged crimes, or crimes he accepted, and insurrection, which just goes to underscore that the pardon thing and the crimes that people, it's not connected to insurrection. And therefore, what's motivating, I think, Destiny here is just going after bad people, which maybe that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense in the context of accusing them of a specific crime.
That wasn't even the question. But the whole point is that I know that's bullshit because we've thought about this in the past. All you're doing is you're making a concession because the concession doesn't matter anymore.
Fair. And it's also not applicable to what they're talking about because they're not insurrection-related crimes. It's like tax offenses and FARA shit, which isn't crime, which isn't insurrection.
So what's actually going on here is you're saying that we should bar probably a sixth of the country from participating in politics one.
No, he didn't say that. He said previous oath takers. You need to follow the plot, Connor. A sixth of the country is a previous oath taker. What are the stats on that, Jimmy? All right. A sixth of the population of the United States. That's about 56 million people. Connor thinks 56 million people are previous oath takers. That seems like a lot. That seems like a bit of a overestimate. Now, what he could say is, you think 56 million people are hardcore Trump MAGA people who you'd say supported insurrection sufficient to be at least qualify as the same substantive thing as what the elected officials did, regardless of whether they qualify for the underlying disqualification.
Again.
And I keep saying, I said elected official. No,
Oh, and the thing is, when he does this kind of nonsense, Connor, he just, it's a function of him not listening too. Connor sometimes will over-listen, but sometimes he doesn't listen at all. And so he just forgot that the scope of what he's saying, and now he looks like an idiot. He said 56 million people trying to go.
I'm saying elected officials right now.
Saying that elected officials should never have participated within the cult of Trump.
Just grant that. Oh, I didn't understand. Right? Just grant. Oh, yeah, you're right. They don't want to grant anything. They don't want to give ground at all. Give ground.
Or MAGA politics.
True. Yeah. 100%.
This feels just a little bit
It's
sorry,
absurd.
and I think this is a little bit different from the place that we started at, because you were saying Nuremberg trials, but these don't sound like trials. Like, these do sound like if you're part of the admin, you're guilty. But I don't know if that's a trial.
Well,
What if
they're
the
going to
trial
pre-pardon.
occurs?
If they're pre-pardoning, then we can't have a trial. Now, if they don't pre-pardon, so
Sure.
then we can try them all for insurrection. Fuck it.
Sure. Okay. So
Or
what?
insurrection.
Okay, yeah, actually, let's say
quick
that they
hypothetical.
will pre-pardon him. What's your evidence that they're engaged in insurrection?
There you go.
I don't know. We'd have to figure out what the historical definition of insurrection is, and then
Oh yeah, but you're not going to have a good time on that. But I don't think Connor knows either, and so how do you advance?
I guess we would dig up all the evidence, we do our discovery like a normal trial, and you find everything, and you go through all their emails, you go
Okay,
through all the
let's
phone
be
calls, you see
sane
if they
for
were
a second.
knowingly
You
violating
acknowledge
the
let's
that
say-
this case would fall flat on its fucking face.
Would it be politically popular? I'm not denying that, of course. Would it be politically unpopular? Yeah. for
Okay,
sure.
so so what you're saying is you're making a moral statement that
Mhm.
1/6 of political representatives, or actually it would be a quarter because these are elected people. 1/4 of elected representatives should be prohibited from participating in politics.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
What if we do these trials? What if there's no pre-pardoning? Marco Rubio gets put on trial and he's found innocent. Like, I don't know if I understand even your hypothetical.
He beats his trial, but at least all the evidence would be out there.
Oh,
Okay, sure. So then I don't know.
So-
Sure, yeah, I agree with
Here's
that.
the question for the opposite
But I
side.
don't agree with
Let's say
this.
that- wait. Okay, question for the other side. Let's say that there are no trials. Let's say that another Trump comes along. Why wouldn't you support him doing the exact same things he's done now, but worse?
What? Hold on. Sorry. Why
wouldn't you support
I
the next Trump doing the
him
same-
Doing the next.
No,
Sorry,
not
go
you. I'm
ahead.
not asking
Yeah,
you. Elected politician comes about. There's the Trump 3 or whatever. The next Trump comes about. Why wouldn't you support him doing the exact same things that this Trump is doing, but even worse?
Not
Huh?
you. It's
You in a
general
general
rule.
sense, you being MAGA. Or
Oh,
anyone
why
else.
wouldn't
So
you?
if I were MAGA, what is the disincentive from supporting Trump
Right.
3 if Trump 3 was legally possible?
Aren't we incentivizing people to take advantage of the law here
Ooh.
without political consequences?
I've probably wrapped my head around the fact that I think that Trump's going down because he's an ephebophilic sex cultist.
That's not what you were asked.
I would
That's
have
not
to
what
say
you were
that
asked.
we would
That's not
need
what
to
you were asked.
reinforce. Like, actually, I think the political capital after Trump
Oh no.
should be spent on reinforcing the guardrails around authorization of uses around military force. It should be put to reinforcing the
Who asked?
guardrails around executive orders. It should be put to trying to get Congress to be more of like that Congresswoman said who just got installed, that it needs to be a co-equal branch of government. So I would
Oh, he's saying like there should be positive projects on reinforcing as opposed to punishing. The only reason I would probably agree with Connor there is because of the impracticability of enforcing. You know? So, I mean, that's why I more identify with Staxium's here is I think that the lack of a realistic opportunity to successfully prosecute people, and also, by the way, I'm just going to be honest, the lack of a successful legal cogent theory by which to punish these people, and the fact that it's very unlikely, I think, that we would get any productive results there, lead me to side more with Staxium's on what ought happen. But in sort of good faith understanding Connor, he's basically saying there's two sides of it, right? You can either punish to disincentivize, or you can bolster the institutional guardrails against this kind of demagoguery and abuse of power. It's tough though, right? Because fundamentally, the problem is a people problem. It's hard to steal a system against bad people. And the people who are head of the Republican Party in MAGA are just horrible bad people. And if you install horrible bad people in all these positions, you can make as many independent whatever as you want. It's not gonna do you good. And in fact, the damage that has been done by Trump both terms, and especially by the second term, in many ways is very hard to undo, because a lot of it relies on good faith and muscle memory of the bureaucracy that's there and the way things have been done. And when you break that wall and when you disrupt that bureaucracy, now you've I think constructed a system that is permanently more fragile. It's tough.
Wait, so just checking. So your
Reinforce
check
all of the
your check
guardrails
against
of
the
the
people. Your check against the people who would support Trump, the next Trump, the people who are openly okay with breaking the law, would be to make more laws.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
don't think
also
that would be
in
effective.
reference,
I think
in
that would be
reference
that
to
is. I think
breaking the
that's
law,
entirely
in
self-defeating.
reference to breaking the law, we would have to get into the nitty-gritty of it. Because as an example, you said that Trump people have suffered no consequences. That's not true. All the January 6th insurrectionists were incarcerated. There were 1,500 people who had criminal charges.
And then they were pardoned.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with whether or not they suffered consequences. They still suffered consequences. If you want to put limits on the power of the pardon,
Yeah, we
then
should.
I'm all ears for
Yeah.
a technocratic solution.
Technocratic.
But
solution.
I guess my question is, if
He
you're a
loves that.
Republican congressperson right now, why the fuck would you ever support guardrails against the pardoning power when, like, you could just be a George Santos? You know what I'm saying? Like, you could just be breaking the law. And
Yeah, the question isn't whether it was an insurrection. I agree it was an insurrection. I don't doubt that at all. The question is who participated and engaged in it. And that, I think, like, there's no basis to believe Marco Rubio engaged in insurrection. I don't agree with that. So, I mean, I agree to grant that it's an insurrection. Doesn't mean that everything else follows.
then Trump gets to pardon you. Why would you ever try to limit that authority?
Well, I mean, if you had principles, it's because you wouldn't want to see the republic die. And that's
Okay,
what
great. That's okay. That's a benchmark the Republicans have not been able to clear.
Actually, I would say that Thomas Massey and MTG have actually
Okay,
stood on
you've
relatively
got-
strong
you've
political
got
ground.
maybe
Oh no! Why are we glazing MTG these days? I don't know why we're glazing these people.
5 you can point to.
I mean, it's funny and useful to watch them piss off Trump, but I do not think that we should be pointing them as like responsible stewards of the Republican Party. I don't think they should be listened to. They're useful distractions and useful foils to Trump, but I just don't agree that we should be propping them up as actually it's very wonderful.
I agree with Massey. Okay, even though he's a fucking psycho, he's for
Yeah,
sure a never
he's a psycho.
Trumper. MTG has like the last 2 weeks out of her. I don't know how long she's been in power. 6 years. That seems too high.
And reminder, like MTG is a major MAGA sycophant.
MTG over the last 2 weeks has
Kinzinger.
changed her tone. Okay, great.
Just to be clear real quick, because I don't want
That's
people to think I
not the
agree with that
Republican
statement.
Party.
MTG has not changed her tone. She's just following the political winds.
True.
Come on, never
Well,
Trumper.
and
If
sure,
she is, it's not because she's
Lord.
offended by the authoritarian moves that Trump
True.
has made. It's just because she sees the politics going
She's
into
not
the
part of
direction.
the
it is.
anymore, so she's scorned. Sure, but you can do the right thing for the wrong reasons, and I don't really give a shit. But
Sorry.
now we've moved the argument from, well,
Yeah, but all you pointed to was 4 people.
of people from voting to
Let Connor finish.
we don't have idealistic candidates that could actually reinforce the guardrails of the republic. These are like totally separate arguments.
Well, to be clear, I didn't make that second argument. I don't know where that second weird argument comes from. Maybe Saxon does, but I didn't make that argument.
Okay, well, I think that like spending political capital on reinforcing our republic would be infinitely better spent than trying to wipe out 25% of elected representatives.
Look, I have a question.
Funnily
I
enough,
wanna-
I find it
Wipe them out.
easily feasible.
Yeah,
like the fact that Republicans would
Yeah, it's infeasible. I mean, that's the issue. It's infeasible. It's also unjustified to charge someone with a crime they haven't committed. A lot of these are political offenses and offenses to morality. I don't think that they're legal offenses, and I don't think that it's both impractical and I think unjust to charge people with crimes they didn't commit. And on theories, either charge or give them punishment for things that they haven't fulfilled when they haven't.
would play ball.
One thing that I might do is get. All right, here we go. This is what I would support. You ready? I support a Congress. So this, I think, would solve the. I support it for the worst actors. The worst of the worst. I would support the Congress using its political power to impeach and disqualify, to use that liberally as applied to people who abuse their power under the Trump administration, Trump himself, J.D. Vance, etc. People who, that is something where I could see a use, but it wouldn't be to charge them with something they didn't do. I'd probably redo insurrection for Trump specifically, to disqualify him for any office in the future, even though he's termed out of the presidency. I would do it to, almost certainly Rubio, almost certainly to Kristi Noem, Homan for bribery. So there are a ton of people that I would use the impeachment power to disqualify in the future. And then it doesn't need to be like keyed to insurrection, which just doesn't fit a lot of this fact pattern for many of these different people. What about this is hypocritical? Jay Stutter? But it wouldn't be for all Republicans either. It would almost certainly be for like members of the administration. And not disqualifying like random senators and congresspeople. But I'm not sure what the hypocrisy is. insurrection, I feel like doesn't really fit for a lot of these people. I most people I don't like because for treason. Give me a break. No, I would impeach people and disqualify them for abuse of power if I feel they've abused their power, and for specific things. It wouldn't just be for supporting Trump. That's unhinged, and that's me being fair and balanced.
To put back up guardrails that they have disassembled over the last 10 years, it seems equally viable than
what's
Stephen's
not
solution.
going to help in that effort. What's not going to help in that effort is saying, "Oh yeah, if we ever do get power, we're coming for that ass. We're going to make sure."
Sorry, what's not going to help in that effort? You're not even
you mean like what Trump has been saying over and over and over again?
Trump's
He was able to win the election doing it.
This
No,
is
no, he's an elected piece of shit. We're
whataboutism.
not arguing about. No, it's not whataboutism. It's this happened. Okay, you're saying that you'll never win an election doing this. Didn't Trump win 2 elections? If you ask him 3 elections doing this, wasn't his chance in the first election lock her up?
Ran a senile 90-year-old person with his brain leaking out of his fucking ears who couldn't do a debate.
That ran against him in 2016 when he was saying lock her up, we're coming for lock her up.
Oh,
wait. What's the point that you're trying to make? If you're trying to make the point
You're
that
telling me
MAGA
that if you're acting,
oh
if you
no,
act vindictive and evil, no one's going to want to vote for you. Trump ran on vindictiveness.
How do you
all 3
explain the
times.
moderate winning in 2020 if everybody is like, so hungry for vindictiveness?
COVID.
COVID probably had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, COVID probably did have a lot to do with it.
Wait, hold on.
I'm not done yet. Thank you. You know what had a lot to do with
Other stuff too.
2024
Other stuff too.
Democratic incompetence. Democrats seem uniquely capable of snatching
Oh
defeat from the jaws of
no,
victory.
Prime is
about the
not.
general when we should be talking about the primary. Trump won the Republican majority.
Okay, Trump won. He did. Okay, in the initial primary, 16.
Can MAGA be named a terrorist organization and prosecute people for material support? Not retroactively, no, right? Like, no, because it wouldn't have been a crime to support them at the time anyway. And I don't agree with this like labeling of domestic terrorist organizations such that we could have material support, because the material support provision for foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs, in the criminal statute, it's understood to be pretty broad. Like even providing legal service for foreign terrorist organizations is a crime. And I imagine you'd have a problem like, okay, if you designate anyone who's MAGA as a domestic terror organization, then like even giving legal services to them knowingly, or like giving them water, like restaurant services would be, because this is the kind of stuff, right? Like if you were to send like a bunch of food over to a foreign terrorist organization, that could be cognizable as material support. Likewise, similar, giving them legal services, giving them banking services. So I have a huge problem with the material support and designations there for a lot of different reasons, and how broad it is constitutionally applied to foreign terrorist organizations. I'm sure I would be against domestically applying it. And then even beyond that, there's a problem of at the time that you're trying to get them for stuff, they weren't designated as such, and so you can't backwards in time call it material support.
16-1, okay, like the original primary. In the original,
No, I was saying
primary,
in 2020.
he won a plurality because all the moderates wouldn't fucking drop out.
No, Trump was the most popular candidate to emerge from
by
the
the
primary.
end of the cycle. But I guarantee you that there was like probably 80% of the way through, 90% of the way through, he was still sitting at 37 or 39%. And
Yeah, there's no guarantee that if Cruz or Rubio drop out.
If the Republicans did to Donald Trump what the Democrats did to Bernie Sanders, we wouldn't have this problem.
Oh no,
at the same time, they didn't, and we can't cry.
Wait, hold on. You're making your argument for us because all you're pointing to is that you don't actually need broad political support.
Wow, thank you so much for the raid. Thank you very, very, very much for the raid, Aaron. Much appreciated. We are watching a debate, and this debate is on Wick TV. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for the raid, guys. Follow the channel, like it. We like the channel. We like it when you do this. And it is Straighteraid _ on Twitch. Give her a follow, and then Straighteraid regular on YouTube. Thank you. And the position right now is like basically to what extent should there be blowback on Trump and Trump supporters and Trump officials, Trump aligned officials. And there's a kind of fight between Connor and the rest of them. Different angles. I take Connor to take the position that we should at most do like a information gathering exercise as a form of blowback, perhaps some crimes where we can find them. That's a position I largely agree with, but I think that some of his argumentation has been a little bit fucky, especially going on tangents, irrelevant points, and getting tripped up on like stuff that doesn't matter and being wrong, objectively wrong about it. Prime seemingly, I don't know, he's just asking questions, not really sussed out a more elaborate position. I agree more with Staxiums, who takes the view of let's investigate for crimes, let's do commissions, fact gathering and stuff, but let's not just charge people based on nothing and disqualify people based on nothing, no like actionable legal theory or anything. And Steven's like, if they support Trump, charge them with insurrection and disqualify them at their previous oath taker, which I think is untailored, unmoored to the actions of some of these people, doesn't really have a basis in a actually correct legal theory on that term.
In order to push a candidate through.
Well, I have no idea what that has to do with anything I've said.
You owned him. Mog.
I'm not being sarcastic. I feel like
I don't. So,
okay, I want to give it. Hold on. I have a question. I want to give it to Prime. My question though is, if Saxiums and Destiny, you both acknowledge that this would be politically unviable, like there would be no political will for this. This would be very unpopular. It just wouldn't be an electoral winner. Why would you think that advocating for this publicly would make it more likely that you are going to win in the future? If you've already acknowledged that this is politically cancerous of a position, why the hell would you ever take this position publicly?
Because you got to fight for the things that you believe in to move the public in that direction, like our fucking God Emperor Gavin Newsom did with Prop 50. What a king!
Hell fucking yeah.
See,
What drove Prop 50 was Texas,
seriously, but not literally,
and Republicans. But anyway, go ahead.
What was
Prime.
a response to Republican?
Yes, it was. Yes, exactly. It was response to Republican overreach, right?
And
so when
Republican lawlessness.
Yeah,
when the Republicans point to saying, "Oh, Democrats, public."
Is Wick doing the infrared mic thing where he just turns up the gain and makes fun? Oh no, and he's gonna he needs to adjust the orientation of his flag here. This is not proper display. Why is this mirrored?
Democratic influencers want to bar all of their opposing all Republicans from office, right? They're going to use that to justify people doing some pretty crazy shit on their side. And
Like what? Like the president of the United States coming out and saying some congressman should be executed? Like that kind of crazy shit?
do you think it's gonna? Do you think it could? Do you think it can't get worse?
Yeah, but it
I
can
don't know
always
how
get worse.
often-
But I mean, like,
I
it
hate
can always
that.
get
I
worse.
hate
That's
that,
the reason why
Wick.
you take dramatic corrective action right now.
I hate that Wick. The whole argument is how do we make things better, right? Like, isn't that you're here to discuss, Wick, how to make things better? Presumably, everyone thinks that the strategy they're proposing, to the extent that you can call it a strategy, because it's all been like, well, most of it's been vague. Frankly, I think, despite my disagreements, Stephen's case is the most concrete in the sense of I understand the proposal. I don't really understand the concrete proposals from these other people. I just think that some of his concrete proposals are unhinged. But presumably everyone thinks their strategies help reduce the bad thing. Don't you think things can get worse? No, we're bottomed. Who thinks that? Yeah, because the nuclear holocaust, the destruction of all sentient life, massive asteroid. The question is annoying. It's, I think, a little bit smug. You didn't think that there could be bad things that happen? No, like presumably everyone is making an argument that their plan is going to minimize the bad, or for whatever other reason, like it's going to do good and avoid these kinds of bad outcomes. So that just annoys me. I don't know.
Okay, right now, if we're not able to impeach Donald Trump based off of what he's saying right now, you know, what makes you think? Like, okay, so you made the point that you're arguing to move people more in.
Connor, this is all premised, the entire proposition, on Democrats winning back control of things. So that doesn't seem like it's engaging with the inherent assumptions of what you're here to talk about.
Your direction.
Presumably, yeah, you're not going to have the mass punishment of MAGA supporting Republicans when they're in control of all branches of government. Well, you can't impeach them. Right? Yeah, you can't do it right now because they're in control.
Okay. What I'm saying is, not only are you wasting your political capital now, and you're probably making discourse worse now, but the jumping over the bar would be trying to impeach Donald Trump now, and we're nowhere fucking near that. Like we're not even close. So I don't even know what
we
the
can't
fuck you're
impeach him
doing.
now, but my strategy would have all those current Republicans that are unwilling to impeach him. They wouldn't even be in office in the future. So
Go ahead, Prime Kai. I knew you want to.
I keep trying to wrap around my head around this fact that effectively you're not trying to eliminate the voter base, if I heard you correct. You're not necessarily
eliminate
the Republican Party. You're trying to, through effectively, in my opinion, trumping up charges of insurrection for anybody supportive of the Trump administration. You're trying to disallow 25% of.
He keeps going on to that 25. He has that 25. No one contested him on that. It should be way more than 25%, brother. This should be like 95% would meet that threshold, I'm assuming. I don't know why you went with 25. But yeah, I mean, I agree with the point here. Like you're gonna create Trump up charges, and I think that they would be trumped up charges for people who did not engage in insurrection for insurrection. I'm just repeating myself at this point. It doesn't fit. That doesn't fit the fact pattern for most people. Some people it does, actually. For Trump himself, it does.
The representatives of the United States from office.
Based.
Okay.
So, okay. One, what about first-term Trump supporters? Right? It's 2016.
Oh, they changed
Trump.
their mind? Oh, then they're good now. They changed their mind between Trump and
Oh, okay. So now we changed our mind.
Oh, so wait. No, that's a good question. Prime is having some productive questions. So whether or not we go after them changes on whether or not they publicly confess that they were wrong to do. Like, wouldn't the punishment rationale, the specific deterrence and general deterrence rationale, mean you punish the people who did it anyway? Or why is that? What? Maybe you can make the argument that the demonstrative value of the, I don't know, the false confession or the real confession or the struggle session is worth it.
Okay, great. I'm glad we have that. I
What
guess
if, what if they change their mind in
right?
2028?
2027. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Too late.
Hey, when's the cutoff date? Right? Was it? And
2023.
I'm honestly asking this.
Cutoff date?
Hey, is it
Cutoff date was January 20th when Biden came to office.
Oh, wow.
when Biden came into office?
It was January 7th,
Oh, shit.
2021.
All right.
2021.
Okay, right.
The
So
day
I
after
guess
you have to look at your hands and see the blood on them.
so I have okay. I have a problem with what Destiny is proposing, right? And I'm guessing there's a lot of room for agreement for whatever Staxium is proposing.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay?
look.
So,
I
hold on,
don't-
one second. No worries.
Prime
So
taking control.
my issue with what Steven is saying is that there's no exit ramp, right? Like this sounds to me like purging the Ba'athist Party, right? And there won't be any repercussions from that, right? We'll just get rid of them. But they don't. These people don't go away, right? And in fact, them and their supporters are well armed. One second. So what we were saying is that we're going to take a maximalist position, not just against the ringleaders, which I can agree with. Like I believe that I imagine that's Staxton's position, right? Hey, let's have accountability for the people who are in charge, right? But everyone down the rung, right, in terms of elected office, right? But yes, you aren't talking about arresting Republican voters, true, right? But Republican voters are going to take it as a defense, as this is everything that they've always feared, right? That the Democrats are finally coming for them, and now we have to take action, right? That is like the clearest clarion call for violence I've ever seen.
Okay. Then we go to that stage if that's what they want. If that's how they feel.
Civil
That's so fucking
war.
dumb. Like 9.9 times out of 10, liberals would lose a civil war. That's like the fucking stupidest shit I've ever heard.
Okay, what?
Seriously? Like
Yeah.
okay, so a quarter of the population gets disbarred because we're still in the political toxis. We're still
My strategy: lose the civil war.
or a quarter of the representatives get disbarred. They use that as a clarion call in order to rally the troops.
Clarion call. He liked that.
Left-wing authoritarianism has
He liked
finally
that.
come to America. Obama is, in the Jade Helm bunker about to launch nukes and 5G internet and all that bullshit. They got hundreds of thousands of motherfuckers to walk on Congress, and then boom, we're in an actual shooting civil war. You think liberals win that? What the fuck are we talking?
Oh, we have all like the gang committing people with the pistols, and aren't Republicans like fat and
They're
dying
not
and they're
very
lots of targets
accurate.
anyway?
They're not particularly good shooters. Sorry to the blacks.
Well, excuse me, all of our trans Tifa trans furry.
Let's get that real-time racism highlight. We'll just clip this real quick.
The gang committing people with the pistols, and aren't Republicans like fat and
They're
dying
not
and they're
very
lots of targets
accurate.
anyway?
They're not particularly good shooters. Sorry to the blacks.
Yikes.
Well, excuse me, all of our trans Tifa trans furry people seem to be quite adept shooters. If
Yeah,
I
but they're
recall
only,
recent
but
history
they're
correctly,
only
so.
0.6% of the population.
No, hold
So
on.
what? You're gonna
Like,
have trans Tifa
the thing-
snipers?
Can I
and,
just-
Sorry,
I'm gonna-
I'll say one last thing about I'll these
Yeah,
Saxon
Brian,
problems,
go
right?
for it.
I just and I
Cereal for every meal. You should all follow our channel. Very funny. It says the most successful shooters recently have been left wing. Just saying.
apologize because I keep interrupting you, but like
You're chilling.
Destiny, I like my problem is like there is no path within your framework that you're presenting for reintegration because that's how you actually heal a divided society, right?
Yeah, we
even
thought
if,
that after Reconstruction, and I think it was a mistake. The idea that we need to massively, like Germany didn't do that, and I think they've had a much better run with their Nazi issue than we've had with our, racial xenophobic issue. I think there is a reason why.
Disavow.
you need to have an accurate accounting process for what's happened. And the idea that everybody's allowed to come back
No, no.
scot-free,
I
because
agree.
originally you don't
Sorry.
run any type of disciplinary action or program like this.
I'm not disagreeing with an accounting process, right? That actually should happen. If that's what you're talking about, great, right? But the way you're formatting this is that this accounting process means just like a blanket accusation against anyone with an R on their name, right? That's the problem in terms of the elected officials, right? And they all support Trump. Almost all of them.
I mean, it
support
sucks,
Trump,
but this
right?
is my country. It's kind of how it works. You should support
Yeah.
fascism.
I know. Hold on. I get the moral out.
Is any of this shit constitutional? So I think it depends. So I think that it would be constitutional. So this is my steelman of Stephen's proposals, as I understand them. I understand an aspect of the proposal to be investigate every fucking thing and be as like close to their shit as possible. I think that's totally constitutional. I support it wholeheartedly, 100%. A part of his proposal I understand to be enforcing Section 3 to the extent that it can be enforced. I agree with that 100%. I think Congress should pass implementing legislation. I don't think that it's contingent on convictions. So on that, totally agree. Where I see a disagreement is that enforcement of Section 3 requires engagement in insurrection. And so that, I think, is what's missing for a lot of these different people. That's what I think is not founded, because you can't just say mere support after an insurrection or mere support for someone who becomes an insurrectionist is itself engagement in insurrection. That I don't think would ever pass the legal standard of engagement. Engagement requires some deliberate act of furthering an insurrection. But if the insurrection is over, then there's no furthering that you're doing. So, or intending to further an insurrection that's over. And it's my position that January 6th was an insurrection that ended. It didn't keep going. Now you could say metaphorically, poetically, it kept going, but in point of fact, it ended. So that I think is unconstitutional, to charge someone or to punish someone who you say engaged in insurrection, who didn't engage in insurrection. And also to make that decision just on your like political speech after the insurrection occurred.
Outrage. I'm morally outraged against those people, right? But I'm talking about like, in terms of a practical and a practical.
That said, I would be in favor of disqualification through impeachment for abuse of power, but it wouldn't be as broad as mere support for Trump. It would be disqualification through impeachment for actual abuse of power under Rubio, under Nome, bribery for Homan, disqualification of Pam Bondi, same thing, abuse of power, clearly, right? For the Comey prosecution, for dropping the Mayor Adams thing. There's tons of shit that you should use if we had the numbers in Congress, disqualification for, and that I would be fully in support of. Then there's a kind of separate political calculus where, I can't predict what the appetite would be.
Sense, right? That the way to actually heal this situation would be that we do that accounting, right? Especially at the top layer, right?
Insurrection does not require rebellion. It's not true. Rebellion is a type of insurrection. Insurrection is the smaller denominator there. And the proof of that is in the various different insurrections that didn't amount to rebellions, which there's precedent for insurrections that were not rebellions. So this person doesn't know what they're talking about.
Prosecute a Trump figure or Marco Rubio or Pete Hegseth, right? We go after those individuals. But for the rest, all right, and maybe some other people a little further down. But for the rest, you have to give them.
By legal definition, it does. No. Rebellion requires an insurrection. Insurrection does not require rebellion. You think Trump is guilty of sedition? I think that he is guilty of insurrection. I don't know that he's guilty of seditious conspiracy. I understand seditious conspiracy to entail a specific meeting of the mind on insurrection. And I don't think that there's enough evidence to show that he had a meeting of the minds. Because to be honest, the fake elector scheme, I don't think that that's insurrection. It relates to the insurrection that occurred. But the fake elector scheme by itself is not insurrection. And I do take sedition to require force or at least the plan of using force. Now, I believe Trump engaged in insurrection through incitement, and incitement does not require a conspiracy. I hope that some of these things are clear up. We can get more specific if you want, but I did deep dive on all these different terms some time ago, and so I have some familiarity with them. Insurrection, incidentally, is a type of treason.
A way to get on board, right? To understand, okay, this was bad, right? I apologize. I admit my mistakes, but I don't necessarily have to go to prison for that, right? And that invites
Well, I'm
you
not talking about
integration.
prison,
We've
to be
done
clear.
this
I'm just
before.
I'm just talking about people being disbarred from running for office again. If you have
What specific act did Trump do to justify insurrection? To justify it or to qualify as insurrection? He insurrected via incitement. Are you asking which words? So the best examples are the speech at the Ellipse. I think, taken in totality, is incitement. And then his tweet after he knew that there was a breach of the Capitol. He knew that they had just stopped the proceeding in Congress. He knew that they needed support. This is all attested to if you go to the Jan 6 investigation by Congress, as well as other information that's come out during the Jack Smith investigations. He tweeted out support and said, and moral support, advocacy, at a time when there was an ongoing insurrection. And so that advocacy, at the time in which it's already been breached, encouragement, that is also incitement. And at that point, it's not like he couldn't have known. He couldn't have known. Yeah, a tweet can be an insurrection. Imagine you take the position that tweets can't be insurrections. Or sorry, can't be an incitement. The tweet isn't an insurrection. The tweet is incitement. The insurrection is the assemblage that was trying to take over the Capitol. That's the insurrection. So the acts of incitement include the speech of the... So the incitement specifically are... Incitement is by definition statements, right? An incitement are a set of statements. That's what incitement is, definitionally. So the incitement are his statements made at the speech and his communications to his supporters and the public afterwards. That's the incitement. What I say is not, I don't think there's sufficient evidence for, is a seditious conspiracy by which Trump is involved, right? If there was evidence that Trump was talking and having a meeting of the minds, right? That's different. A meeting of the minds as opposed to incitement. The incitement are the statements made at the Ellipse and tweets. Correct. Communications. Not a weak case. No. Right? It would be like saying, like, any incitement is going to be premised on statements. It's not weird, right? Like, that's what incitement is. The intention of the word said to be incitement or not is all speculation and opinion, nothing else. No, I mean, like, I don't know what to tell you. We get to intention based on circumstantial evidence. That's every criminal case. That's every criminal case. So people are like, you're just speculating intent. I mean, would you ever say that of like any... You didn't know that Epstein wasn't being mind controlled by aliens. You didn't know that. You didn't know that. How do you know he intended to do all that stuff? He could have just been... Isn't it logically possible that he was really a patsy for some dark groups that had family members of his locked away, and everything he did, including down to the statement that he would say he was saying to every person, was heavily scripted? Can you prove that didn't happen? Yeah. So anyone who takes that position, like, you can never know intent, you can never know intent, you can never know intent, you're never going to convince them. They're just idiots, people who die on that hill. But yeah, incitement is a set of statements. What constitutes insurrection? Incitement plus what? No, you're Exel. Stop. Stop. Just pause. Pause. Insurrection is not incitement. Do we really need? I thought I went over this enough with you guys. Incitement is a type of engagement. You can engage through incitement. You can also engage through other things. Insurrection is defined differently. Insurrection is an assemblage to resist one or more laws for a public purpose using force or intimidation. That's an insurrection. Notice none of that is contingent on incitement. That's what an insurrection is. But to engage in an insurrection is to do something, right, to promote the insurrection or to bring about an insurrection. So I'll give you an example, right? If you are selling arms to the Confederates or providing arms to the Confederates for the purpose of promoting the insurrection against the United States, I'm just making weapons, bro. I'm just making weapons. What's the definition of insurrection? What, making arms is now defined as insurrection? No. You're engaging in an insurrection. And even doing things like, tending to the wounded of the Confederates. Trying to promote, make sure everyone is clothed in an insurrection. Helping the insurrection, where your conscious object is to either bring about an insurrection or to sustain one, to help one. That's engagement. And one way in which you can engage in an insurrection, including, by the way, taking up arms yourself, is to incite. And there's examples of that in the historical record of people in the pre-Civil War context of insurrection. Because, of course, insurrection is a concept that predates the Civil War. They were mapping on a pre-existing concept to the Civil War. That's why they understood insurrection is a concept that predates the most famous insurrection in our history, the Civil War. So I get amused by people who question me on this shit, who haven't even studied even a second of it or listened to me on it at all. No one's arguing the definition of the word is the interpretation of what you consider the words cover. People are arguing what I mean. And yeah, everything I'm saying is backed up by the historical legal tradition of insurrection, and incitement absolutely is part of engagement. I didn't see a violent uprising against the government. You're just not tracking the definition of insurrection. That said, Jan 6 is trivially a violent uprising against the government. Basically, incitement isn't incitement. Just say you say or something. Someone says that. What am I getting at? Okay, if you guys don't know incitement, that's a different standard that we have to talk about. But it just sounds like you guys are big mad that you don't know these things. And then you have the complete pivot. I did see a mostly peaceful process that interrupted an administrative process in Congress. None of that is inconsistent, even if it were true, mostly peaceful, whatever, in terms of the numbers. That's not inconsistent with insurrection, right? You have to find a contradiction. The fact that an insurrection interrupting an administrative process doesn't contradict that it's an insurrection. You need to find a contradiction, either on my view or say that it's not the standard view of what the definition means. Right? You can say it's mostly peaceful and there was an insurrection, not a contradiction. You guys, you're too emotional. And you can see that of the MAGA people who are in my chat. They're very emotional. So they don't actually do the reading. They just big mad, and so they say things that aren't actually responsive. It's not responsive that there's most of the individuals there were peaceful. It doesn't contradict an insurrection. Tending to wounded can be an insurrection. I didn't say is an insurrection. Can be engagement in an insurrection. Can be engagement in an ongoing insurrection. By itself is not an insurrection, right? Another confused idiot, right? We're talking about two things, right? Insurrection and engagement. You can engage in being an idiot online, and you can do that many different ways, right? You can engage in the democratic process through different ways. You can engage in a war effort through many different ways. Engage in something. But you guys are just big mad. Annoyed, emotional, coping MAGA.
A different set of consequences. You can be some. Maybe I agree with them. I don't know.
I have a historical question, just because we're talking about Nuremberg. I do know that there were only like 150 officials that were charged. If you were just like a Nazi soldier, were you barred from running for office?
Oh no.
I believe so. I believe anyone who was involved in the regime.
Grok.
Okay.
Well, don't ask Grok. I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't ask Grok. Yeah.
What do you mean by Nazi soldier? Do you mean Wehrmacht as well as members of the SS?
I could be wrong though. So, but
Yeah,
I believe that
Waffen SS.
everyone
No,
involved in the regime.
I think the
was
one thing
barred
that
for a
is
while.
like I definitely agree with
Until they
pretty
recanted and
severe
repented.
accounting.
The process.
I definitely agree with a pretty severe accounting process, but I definitely disagree with Connor, where he's specifically saying that like if this occurs, we're gonna.
Can Doctors Without Borders possibly be this guy? He's not actually a troll. He's drunk. So a group of people can't be an insurrection. It's a category error. Humans aren't themselves insurrections. So no, it's just incoherent to say doctors can be an insurrection. It doesn't make sense.
Have like a civil war on our hands. I think this is such a cult of personality that the moment that Trump like steps down, there's not going to be this sort of rallying cry that's centralized in any sort of way. But yeah, I definitely think that a blanket.
Wait a minute, would Trump? But will Trump be? Will we even bother to trial with him?
Group of people can't be an insurrection. No, group of people can't be an insurrection. No.
Because if all that Stephen is asking for, he can't run for office again. But he can't run for office again. Well, he's already done his 2 terms, right? He's not going to do a 3rd term. Why even bother to trial for Trump?
Well, Trump would be charged with different things. His entire family's wealth would be expropriated from him and given to the United States of America. All of his family would be stripped of all their businesses, all their assets, and then they can go rebuild their shit in Russia or wherever the fuck. They could do it in the United States of America too, but every single thing would be taken.
I do think that we, like, in my opinion, what should happen is that there should be a constitutional amendment or some kind of process to disgorge all of the what I think are illegal benefits and money that Trump was able to take from the American people through his corruption and bribery and graft. So I do agree with Stephen there that there ought to be a legal process to seize the holdings of Trump, and to the extent of his graft, and there should be a calculation made, graft and bribery with interest, that should be expropriated, and the government should take ownership of it. I do agree that that is something that ought to happen. It should disgorge all the profits that he has made by virtue of his corrupt and sort of bribery-related conduct, anything related to his abuse of power.
From that family, 100%.
Listen. I don't even think this
I totally agree with that. With
the real conversation. I think what's going on is Stephen, similar to Newsom, is plotting out an extreme position, and then he's watching Prime and Staxiums, who are trying to steelman his position.
I don't lose my mind, debate board. I'm addressing all of your arguments and destroying them, crushing them, every single one. And you have nothing left but, like, people can't be insurrections. Is mayonnaise an instrument? That's what you guys are, like, left with.
Sprinting over to him, being like, Daddy Stephen, can we do Nuremberg, but maybe not as extreme as what you're talking about? Can we just, like, instead of incarcerating them and disappropriating them of property, could we just, like, maybe bar them from office? Okay, maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that. No, fuck your extreme position. Your extreme position is bullshit. Staxium and Prime Kai is trying to find a sensible, like, version of your thing. It's a waste of time and energy. And this is part of what I'm saying is, like, all you're really doing is, because I have, like, a few MAGA people in my chat, all you're doing is the MAGA people are like, oh, this is who we knew. We knew Stephen was like this the whole time. We knew that he was a left-wing authoritarian.
And this is, like, Connor at his worst on his soapbox. Hang on. I'm so confused about Connor's position in regards to Trump and his Trump. Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, Eddie. It shows that Connor, I think, he's playing to a crowd, and he's trying to this is what I say with Connor sometimes in terms of, and by the way, it's spelled with one N. With Connor and his whole I'm a Republican thing. If he's going to go meta, I'll go meta on Connor. He wants to get on the soapbox and be like, you're so extreme. You want to do this. You're just trying to fulfill an emotional urge, and you just want it because it feels good. Dude, you just said you wanted to shoot Trump out of a trebuchet. You think that's less extreme than seizing property related to graft and bribery? So, or like you say you're a Republican, but you just disagree with every single Republican except for Who? A version of Nikki Haley that doesn't exist anymore? It just doesn't really feel like he's as much tracking all the time and is trying to be on a soapbox and have this appearance of the reasonable conservative reining in these crazy lefties. And I don't know. It kind of bums me out for him to go to the meta so hard and, in my opinion, be so obviously playing to the crowd. Now, I think you could say the same thing about Steven in that I don't think that his positions are well thought out in terms of the specific insurrection. I think it's fucking stupid. I think he's mad, I guess, but in this conversation, maybe going that meta for Connor, not useful. And it's not going to, I think, cause him to give any ground. It's just going to be useless time.
Communist dick sucker who was gunning for us. Like, dude, that all you're doing is you're giving red meat to the people that already hate you. That's all you've done.
I don't know how not to give red meat to those people, though.
You can't, because it's a trap they've said that Connor keeps falling into over and over again. It's where somebody's beating the shit out of you over and over and over again, and you go, I'm beating this guy because he's violent. I'm beating this guy because he's violent. I'm beating this guy. And then as soon as he's like, look, see, I told you. And then all the other people around are like, wow, you're playing right into that dude's rhetoric. I noticed. So when you hit him back, like you're playing right into that guy's rhetoric.
Speaking the truth is never a trap, okay? And by the way, like the reason why MAGA is being hoisted by its own petard is because it's done what you
language.
did, but it's painted itself into a corner. Okay, it has taken the base and shaken them by the shoulders for decades, that you've mentioned as well. Rush Limbaugh is arguably the beginning of this, and they've taken them.
He needs to go and like track through time. Everything needs to be contextualized through time. I don't agree. I don't disagree that like context is important to any analytical endeavor, but I think he overdoes it sometimes. Connor,
by the shoulders, and they've shaken and screamed in their face. The elites are all pedophiles. They're all monsters. You're being run by the globalists, the international globalist, post-racial, progressive, communist, Leninist, whatever things. They're all going to kill you. And what's happened is they've radicalized their base to the point that, now, yes, they have power, but now they're turning into the leopards eating faces party. Well, at least the leopard is not going to eat my own face. Donald Trump was forced to, against his will, release the Epstein files because his own party turned against him in reference to it. So once again, you're trying to charge.
What's the relevance of that?
I don't understand what argument you're trying to.
We got temporary electoral power.
I don't know what
stupid shit.
I don't know argument. What argument are you trying to make here right now? I don't know.
I really don't understand.
What I'm trying to make is that you are trying, for some reason, on the verge of Donald Trump being politically irrelevant within a year. You're
that is copium. I don't even understand why you would think that. Less relevant, sure. Irrelevant in a year? No.
Arguing that you should adopt and mirror Trump's rhetoric and political positions. It's fucking stupid as shit.
Because the issue you're running into is you're viewing Trump as a single moment, a single discrete moment in time.
No, I'm not.
The Republican Party.
Let Destiny finish and then you can respond. Go ahead.
Trump, yeah, but Trump is also one of the things that caused Trump is the fact that there is no accountability for conservative derangement. And there's never been accountability for conservative derangement, so they'll continue to be deranged. You keep saying that, like, well, we need to let people back. You don't want to prove them right. Prove them right about what? They say the exact same things that I say when they're talking to themselves. And then when they come to the liberals, they're like, oh, you guys can't do that because it would be horrible. And then they go and they do the horrible things. The difference is, for some reason, you believe them when they criticize the liberals, but you're not listening to them when they're giving strategy to their own political operatives.
Okay, so hold on. Let's say that you win this rhetorical game, okay? Is the
I don't think he was listening.
remainder of American politics for the
but everybody says, okay, I think he was planning on what to say when, like, waking around. I don't think he was listening.
10 years until the entire republic collapses is effectively like a tit-for-tat race to the bottom between extreme lefties and extreme rightoids. Because effectively what I see
tit-for-tat is not a race. Don't ask me a question, then answer it. You can answer after. You asked the question. No, you're about to answer the question.
Thank you.
Let him finish and you can answer, Destiny.
What I see on the left right now is I see like I've said, I've mentioned the 4 things that I think PF Young is right about that are causing people to crave political radicalism.
You don't need
and
to
I see
back up every fucking 2 seconds.
Normalizing socialists and normalizing communists. And you are rhetorically paving the way through which they can use
for communism
in order to seize power.
For communism?
Say that the next Trump is going to be right-wing. It could be some left-wing fucking socialist degenerate piece of shit. So why the fuck?
So we shouldn't punish. This is Connor, what I'm gathering to be Connor's. We shouldn't punish these Trumpoids because it'll pave the way for the tankies. For the tankies. Good one.
Would we make that path easier?
What was the question? I don't remember the question.
Someone
what was
said
the beginning part of this where you did this whole swear around?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta tailor it a little bit, bud.
Why? In 1 year, we're going to hit the midterms. It's probably going to be a Democrat sweep.
Oh,
Trump
I remember. You were saying that
Trump will be
I'm doing a race to the bottom. We've been
Yes.
racing to the bottom, led by the Republican Party. Saying that if you do fuck shit, there are going to be consequences. It's not a race for a bottom. It's stopping the race to the bottom. Tit for tat is not a thing where you constantly go back and forth punching each other. It's where you avoid
crimes that they're not even guilty of.
True.
I think they've committed insurrection. I think you can make the argument for it.
No. Insurrection means that you're trying to interrupt a governmental process through like violence or whatever. The people who are MAGA
Not entirely true, no, but he's more to the point than what Destiny's proposing, yeah.
who support Trump, they might support a person who engaged in insurrection, but they themselves are not insurrectionists.
Correct.
So
Supporting
you're actually
insurrectionists is engaging in insurrection.
Not after the fact, not post fact, not on things that aren't related to insurrection. If I just bake a pie for an insurrection, not wanting them to further the insurrection, different than if I'm baking a cake for an insurrectionist who is currently trying to do an insurrection for the purpose of promoting the insurrection. So I think that this is, and I think he knows better. He definitely knows better. This is sneaky as hell. This is not anything that you could reasonably argue. You're going to sound like a fucking idiot. And Connor has an intuition about that. I wish he would drive it home based on like the actual meaning of these terms. But even just how he smiles about it, I don't think he knows it's weak as fuck.
Guilty.
Supporting an insurrectionist is in and of itself definitely engaging in insurrection. That's what it means. If you're supporting somebody in a rebellion,
the 14th Amendment, go ahead and read me it.
That's not going to get you the definition of engagement because it doesn't define it.
read the text. It says, or somebody who's aided the enemies thereof.
Aided the enemies thereof.
That has a very specific meaning.
If somebody legitimately believes in the MAGA bullshit, which I don't.
Oh no! Don't argue this, Connor. You're going to say that someone can subjectively, because they think what they're doing is justified, not be engaged in insurrection, and then you're going to get in the hole because if you do that, then there was no insurrection because they all thought that they were defending. But of course, justification is not a defense to insurrection. The people who fought the Civil War, the Confederates, thought what they were doing was justified and legal. You can be like, belief in the legality doesn't make it not an insurrection. The American Revolution, probably justified. That's an insurrection, whether it's not, it's justified or legally backed. And this is all needless.
By the way, but if they legitimately believe it and they are supporting.
No, because you have now. This is what happens when you're just so reckless. I think he's reckless in thinking about the micro point on insurrection, but does he realize that the argument he's giving would make all these people on Jan 6 not insurrectionists? Because they all legitimately thought, or I would say a lot of them legitimately thought that they had the country was being stolen from them. Maybe not some of the top people or the people who were more knowledgeable, but a lot of them didn't think that they thought they were following lawful orders from their president. They thought that they were protecting their country. And so mere subjective belief isn't going to help you here. And it shouldn't be used as a potential escape route for Trumpist insurrectionists.
Supporting Donald Trump.
Section 3 says, no person should be a senator, representative, blah, 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 blah. So the ending part of this is, to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. It's the same thing. Whether you're supporting them or whether you're doing it yourself, it's considered the same.
Donald Trump hasn't been convicted of insurrection and...
Don't make that point. So then they're not engaging in insurrection unless they're convicted? No. He doesn't know enough to have this discussion.
They're
charging for it. There you go. That's the trial. Boom.
You're going to make it a crime and convict people of a crime.
It already is a crime.
For supporting someone who is the active president of...
That's the problem. Yeah, that's what you should stick to.
They're of the United States, but also of the leader of their caucus, the leader of their party.
Sorry, do you believe that you should always unequivocally support the leader of your party just because he has the letter R or D next to his name?
Of course not. That's pretty much...
Why did you just give that as an excuse then? Why is that your defense then? You're going to charge this guy, you think this guy's bad.
Yeah, that's a bad argument to give. You shouldn't do it because, just because you followed the leader? What, you're insurrectionist just because you follow the leader? What he's trying to get to, because intuitively, Connor, I think, is in the position where he knows this doesn't seem right. The problem is the intent for some of these people, and then the timeliness of when the insurrection ended. Those are the two things that are missing for a lot of these people, is that you can't prove Marco Rubio supported Trump so as to promote the insurrection that occurred and ended. That's the problem, is the timing of it and whether the intent of support was coextensive with an intent to engage in an insurrection that at one point did end. But being like, you're just following your leader, bro. That's not going to help you, man. Or saying something like, he wasn't charged. These are horrible arguments.
He supports his leader?
They believe in MAGA. They're dumb.
That's fine. And those people are enemies to my country.
No ignorance.
That's fine. There are
There's
people
no
that are legitimate
ignorance
communists,
excuse.
legitimate fucking Nazis. Why the fuck would I care about what they think? I'm an American. I believe in the American Constitution. Why the fuck would I care about somebody who doesn't believe in the American Constitution? What a stupid fucking argument.
By saying that...
And not realizing this, Connor has just totally given an out for all these Trumpists. And he's kind of portraying them, even if it's not what he means to do, as good-hearted and good faith simpletons who were just all not as malicious in the way that he ascribes maliciousness to communists and socialists, and like Mamdani, the way he's portraying them is like, oh, these like cute little angels, and they were just they couldn't help themselves but go storm the Capitol. So this is a disaster on many levels, even though I think Connor is ultimately right on the underlying applicability of this to most of the people to whom he wants it to apply. This is a disaster.
You are going to engage in the race to the bottom. I think you are paving the way.
It's not a race to the bottom. How is it a race to the bottom? It's holding people accountable for breaking the law and for encouraging and supporting people who break the law.
But you have already said earlier in this conversation that you're effectively comfortable with fucking
he doesn't know where it's going.
People of a crime that they have not committed. We do not agree that these people have committed.
That's what you were just arguing. You were just arguing whether they committed it, and you don't agree on that. You don't agree.
The crime. And not only that,
and see if they beat the case.
Entire paradigm. Not only that, but I'm accepting this entire paradigm that what you're proposing is even possible.
Okay, Connor, wait,
see if they beat the case. Go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, Stack.
Connor,
please.
I got a question. What would you do about specific Trump officials? Like, let's just use like Pam Bondi as an example, who has at multiple times skirted court orders.
Okay, so
Very harsh words. Very harsh.
Is it?
I would send her a fruit basket and try to convince her of the smartness of Burkean conservatism. I think you get more flies with honey. And so that's what I would try to do, because we share a foundational belief. Now, you might think that that's soy or whatever, but I think okay, that's my meme on Connor. I don't know what he's going to say here.
What?
Sorry. What I would need is so for instance, like let's get into specifics. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, okay?
Yeah.
The Justice Department.
Connor has two memes. Either go, and I said this the other day, super broad or super narrow. Super broad to the beginning of the time-space continuum or the start of human civilization or World War II, some other arbitrary point in time far removed from the context of the current day. Or to get into the nitty-gritty of a case, bro. Just answer the question. It pisses me off. Just answer the question broadly and then get more specific. I think Pam Bondi should be disqualified from office. I think that she should be charged with kidnapping. And this is why. One, she did this, and there's more we could talk about, but here you go. I just think teach her about the dangers of the hedonist atheist lifestyle.
/ resisted a lower court order in order to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And they fought over the word of facilitate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they dragged it out for 90 to 120 days or whatever. And then they brought him back for some kind of criminal processing. I don't even know what it was. You would have to show me a crime that Pam Bondi or a Trump representative actually committed that.
You need to say what you want to be done with her. That's what you were asked. Not whether you would charge her with a crime. You're being given an open-ended possibility. And you were being asked to provide what you would do. And you're like, you would need to show me this to charge her. Why don't you just give us your case?
Is indictable and convictable. Because as far as I know, slow walking a court order is actually not a crime until you reach contempt.
Okay. What
All right. So you didn't answer the question?
about
So not charging her unless there's evidence for a crime. Great. Agreed. So what did we get from Connor? Is in order to charge Pam Bondi, you would need to demonstrate that she committed a crime. All right, Connor, so what do you want to be done with her, given what you know? Did you think that we were asking you whether we should prosecute crime breaking?
Sorry, just let me check here.
Just to jump past like hypotheticals,
Mhm.
you need to show me a convictable crime. So as an example, with the drone striking civilian ships in the Caribbean,
I think that should be charged with the crime of murder.
I think that's quite possibly a war crime. I think it might
I think it's murder.
be a
And
violation
Hegseth is liable.
Yeah, I think Hegseth should be chargeable with murder. I think Trump should be too, but cat's out of the bag there. I don't think that we can. I think that's an official act, right? And who was talking about? Who was the one who was saying that these kinds of hypotheticals could happen, where Trump could just like order the death of people abroad? Oh, right, it was me and Steve actually. And who was the one saying that that's a stupid interpretation of the immunity doctrine? Does anyone remember one of the people who we were arguing with? Does anyone remember? Oh, it was fucking Counterpoints. This motherfucker right here. Do you remember this?
I think Hegseth is potentially liable. Absolutely.
So
And
he should be convicted of a crime after.
But you need to figure out what it is, and you also need to process through
Have these guys not heard of homicide, murder?
a court. Because, for instance, like I'm pretty sure what is it, Article 2, the roles and responsibilities of the presidency. I fucking forget which article is which article. But the point is that the president does have broad discretion when it comes to national
There's not that many articles.
security matters and when it comes to like declaring emergencies and responding to emergencies. But the question is, he directed his Secretary of War to take military action against narco terrorists
In the Gulf
so you
of
effectively would have
America.
to go to a court and argue like, what's the definition of a narco terrorist? Who has the ability to even declare what a narco terrorist organization is? Are you able to use lethal force just for drug trafficking? You would have to figure all this shit out. And I
would charge him with murder.
For me, I wouldn't spend the political capital on this for the next 2 years or 4 years.
But all you're describing is the process. Is like you're saying that it wouldn't be politically.
It would be.
So for Obama, no, I do think that there are potential legal killings that the president could order that are legal under the rules of war and under the laws of war, especially with respect to a declared war or authorization from Congress. It's just like you wouldn't be able to charge, or you would be unsuccessful in trying to charge Lincoln with murder because he's authorized under the rules of war to order his battalions into rebel territory, and which would necessitate the killing of other individuals. The question isn't whether it's like cops sometimes have authorization to kill people. That doesn't mean every cop killing. You're like, oh, so you're going to charge Wally the cop for murder, but this other guy who was authorized to kill this person isn't going to get charged? So everyone can grant some level of authorization. The question is, as compared to Obama's use of lethal force and what is being activated in the international waters, which of these is A, shows that they have done their due diligence so as to imply that they're conforming with the rules of war, and B, which of these is actually authorized by Congress and is pursuant to even a tangibly assertable war or military engagement attendant to an invasion or a state of war. The war on terror is cognizable in that sense. We have, war declared on Al-Qaeda, and the people that we attack, the U.S. citizens in the one they use is always this guy. I always remember his name, but he was a U.S. citizen. I mean, there's an allegation at least there that he is, and it's actually true, Al-Awlaki, I think. A member of Al-Qaeda, an organization with which we are at war, and is actually engaging in war against us. And there is no definition of war and engaging in war in that traditional sense that would include drug trafficking. There's none. That is not war. That is not invasion. That is trafficking. So everyone who is trying to portray this as in concert with the drone strikes that, by the way, you don't even have to buy that those were properly done by Obama, is completely missing the forest for the trees. And trying to make words mean things that don't. It's the same thing, right? They define invasion to mean whatever Trump says invasion is. They define words mean nothing. Peace is war, war is peace. They make things up.
Immoral to go after the Trump administration. But by the way, the time to do that wouldn't be after Trump's out of office. The time to do that would be now.
Well, we are taking it. Like, there's multiple lawsuits going on right now with the Trump administration. I don't understand.
Okay,
that.
are
Also,
there,
we can't
are there
do it now
lawsuits
because we don't
specifically for
control
the
the.
drone
We can't
striking
do
of
it.
Caribbean boats?
We can't do it right now because we don't have the Department of Justice to charge or investigate these crimes. It's owned by Trump.
Um, how,
Grant
now
that,
we're kinda
grant
getting into
that,
the nitty-gritty
grant
or
that,
whatever.
grant
I don't
that. Just
understand how
grant it.
Congress has oversight and yet
Oh
has
my
no
God.
ability to oversee
Dude, they're controlled by Trump Republicans. Are you stupid?
or affect any executive action whatsoever.
Congress can't charge crimes. They can make recommendations to the DOJ,
Sure.
but they can obviously
Okay,
shit all over that.
but if we're
But it's also controlled by Republicans.
currently blowing up boats, then shouldn't, I don't know, Democratic senators, like this is the one that we bumped onto that's probably the most obvious. Okay, so let's stick with this for a second. This is the most obvious one. How come I'm not seeing AOC, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, or any of these people stepping up into Congress right now and saying, we're engaged in a unilateral, illegal,
They are saying that. This guy just wants any excuse to blame Democrats.
extra constitutional, murderous campaign against civilians in the Caribbean.
Wait a
And
second.
regardless
They
of whether
are
these people
saying.
are drug
Well, at
traffickers,
least I know AOC is saying that.
this is like a breach of federal authority, and we need to do oversight immediately.
Well, hold on.
people
for
literally
that,
been saying
Stephen, do you
Yeah, I feel-
agree? Stephen, do you agree that bombing those boats, that would be one of the things you would charge Trump with, like bombing the Venezuelan boats?
Yeah, murder.
Like, what's
Yes,
the
I
fine?
mean, it
murder.
wouldn't be charged as like
Murder.
a war crime because this is a Rome statute stuff. We're not a signatory to the ICC. I would charge this fucking murder.
Yep.
You charge him with murder. Okay,
Yes.
All right. Even though he didn't actually commit it, you're saying that, like,
Okay, sorry.
He caused the death of another human being with malice aforethought. That's murder. Whether or not he shot the bullet himself, that's not right. Like if you cause the death of another human being with malice aforethought, you committed murder. He is a murderer,
Conspiracy to commit murder.
conspiracy
and then conspiracy as well.
murder. Okay, I'm just
Okay,
trying to
actually, I'll
understand.
put that back to
What's
Staxians.
included?
So Staxians, do you think Hexas should be charged with murder when the Trump admin is done?
Yes.
Murder seems. I don't know it specifically.
To be honest, Steve's rather right. Probably charge him at least with conspiracy. Yes, murder.
Look, I'm not a fucking lawyer. I don't know what specific crime he should be committed with, but I do know that. I've got a quote here. He said about the Venezuelan strikes that he has absolute and complete authority based off of the defense of the American people alone and refuse justification.
Oh, is he about to bring up Biden and Palestine? He set it up for it, right? He set it up for his ult. Would you try? He set it up for the what about Biden? I can sense it. I can fucking sense it. Let's see it.
I mean,
I definitely think that there's something convictable in there. I don't know what specifically that crime would be.
okay, so if we were still entertaining Steven's hypothetical,
Oh,
then
no.
since the Department of Justice
He's
can't
getting cocked. He's getting cocked. He's getting got by God.
charge anybody, let's say that we have a Democratic administration next. But it's like, Steven, it sounds to me like this, you should support this logically. So Democratic administration comes in. They shouldn't attack affordability. They shouldn't attack the economy. They shouldn't attack, existential technological shifts. They shouldn't tackle immigration. What they should do is they should spend probably the entirety of their first term going through the entirety of the Trump administration, looking for convictable crimes, and then trying to convict all subordinate admin officials of the Trump administration.
They could do both at the same time.
Yeah, they can do both.
I don't have faith that they could, but I don't know if we
Yeah, you hire lawyers to investigate crimes in DOJ, replace all the MAGA people. Yeah, you have to do that.
need to open that up on a
I mean,
can.
You don't
I
know
don't
if
think it's
multiple investigations can occur at one time.
No, I'm sure that they could conduct multiple investigations. I'm just saying that the amount of political capital that you would need in
No, you can do both. You get your legislators to work on this shit. Just get a good renominate Merrick Garland. I'm sure. I'm sure they'll take a look.
order to convict. Like, so for instance, Pete Hexas' logical defense would be, I'm the Secretary of War, the Secretary of Defense. There's an immediate threat to death of great bodily harm to American citizens. The president.
And he's taking the invitation that John Roberts lays out to be like, oh, I just say executive power, and now I can never do a crime, not even murder. All Hexas has to say is, I think that there's a threat. And if there's like, I don't know, illegal cattle importers, you'd be like, well, they could have mad cow, and me as Secretary of War, I just made the executive decision to just bomb the cows. Don't do this, dude. Roberts has destroyed the minds of so many.
Is within my direct chain of command. I'm acting within my direct chain of command, and I'm taking out an existential threat to American citizens. That's part of my purview as a Secretary of Defense. So then you would have to convince a jury or Congress that Pete Hegseth was in the wrong for following orders from Donald Trump in order to take out the Caribbean boats. And then you would have to say, this is worthy of him no longer being able to be in politics, or it would be worthy of incarceration. I think you would bleed a shitload of political capital trying to make that
Okay,
happen.
let's proffer a hypothetical here. Let's just
Proffer.
say, for the sake of conversation, that
This is the most irrelevant
2028,
political panel. In a
Trump
way,
basically
it's less
disappears,
fiery than I
and
wanted.
sees, America.
I just want
Massive
Prime to get
blue
to
wave,
Biden.
80-20 split.
He's got
kind of
to.
thing. Like,
He's got to be
Texas
charging
goes
that up.
full blue.
I
We have
couldn't-
so
like look at him. That would have been a perfect little moment to be like, what about Biden?
much political capital. Do you think that we should leverage
He's
it
got to be
in this way?
ulting.
Like, let's just say we do have the political
If
capital.
if we were working in like in an ideal, let's say that it was like a perfect political environment and we could do this without burning political capital and we could deal with all the things that we were talking about, then yeah, sure. I would love to bar Marco Rubio from politics for being complicit in the indirect deaths of probably hundreds of
And
thousands or millions of
specifically,
people.
what
I
you're
would love to
not
hold him
saying,
accountable
though,
for that.
but you're
I
not
just don't
saying
think
that we would also just get rid of the rest of the Republican Party, right? Like that.
Well, right,
You're
but-
talking about the upper echelons.
Well, and the reason why this actually goes back to as far as like ancient Rome, by the way, apotheosis. It's where the emperor, when he dies, he ascends to God.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I missing? Is my take on Connor not completely correct? When you look back at ancient Rome, bro, come on, dude.
Get rid of the rest of the Republican Party, right? Like that.
Well, right,
You're
but-
talking about the upper echelons.
Well, and the reason why this actually goes back to as far as like ancient Rome, by the way, apotheosis. It's where the emperor, when he dies, he ascends to godhood or whatever. It's why Gerald Ford forgave Nixon or pardoned Nixon or whatever. The reason why you don't go after the previous administration is because somebody could go after you.
Told you.
Arguably, based off of this logic, if the Republicans get back into office,
This actually
they
goes
could
back to
charge
Burke
Obama for murder
conservative.
for Anwar
Yeah,
al-Awlaki.
so
And
interesting.
Bush for lying
Sure.
about WMD.
Prime
Yeah,
is-
thank you for that.
War.
So I'm gonna hold on. Sorry.
Yeah, actually,
Prime.
Prime was
Ooh,
good at
that's
all of
some
this, by the way.
bingo.
Oh yeah, hold on.
Go ahead, Prime,
Hold on.
please.
Yeah, thank you. So, thank you for that jumping off point. First of all, previously, counterpoints, you said that I was trying to make Stephen's points reasonable. I'm not. Stephen's points is fucking ridiculous, right? That being said, what we both agree on, what you just agreed on, is the thing that I was saying previously, is that we should have accountability, right? Especially for those in charge, right? Now, how far down exactly down the rung we should go, right? That's up for debate, right? What Stephen's idea, Stephen's presenting a dumb fuck idea, but still, that's not even my biggest problem.
I
with
agree.
Stephen, right? That's something I have yet to
At least
elucidate.
some
but
of
we're just
it.
touching on. So, right, my issue is that I don't think
Biden.
Stephen here is actually being consistent, right?
Oh,
Stephen,
no,
I'm going to ask
no.
you, hey, should we also go back through the Democratic administrations and then
Yes!
charge presidents with crimes?
I'm gonna get some water.
I called it.
I don't know which crimes.
Which
Oh,
crimes?
I don't
Yes,
know. How about
conspiracy,
genocide?
To commit murder, right? So you can
Which
give an
who?
order.
Which one?
Yeah, sure. Joe Biden. Yeah, Joe Biden, right? Joe
What
Biden.
murder would you say
assisting-
that- what
yeah,
murder
the,
would-
the Gazans, right? Providing weapons, right, to slaughter civilians. What about that?
No.
No. Oh, no. We don't do that. No. Okay, those deaths, those are okay, right? Why are those okay?
It's not that they're okay. It's that there's
No, I'm not talking. Sorry, no, I'm not talking to you.
This is
Stephen,
alt.
right? You have the problem is that
This
you
is
have a
the
different
alt.
idea, right? And I think
Oh, yeah,
you're
that's fine.
completely reasonable. But Stephen, why not?
Because it's a military conflict. It's an ongoing military conflict.
Oh, it's a military conflict now, right?
So no war.
The Trump administration is assembling one of the biggest naval forces we ever have in the Caribbean, right? They're going to take military action.
No crimes win war.
That the narco terrorists, right, are working with Maduro, and then
We have Prime has Steven on the ropes here.
that makes it because now
What it has to do with the proposition, fuck if I know, but let's see. I don't think this war means no crime thing really follows.
they have state backing. That's a military action, and so why not? Like, why would shouldn't
If we had
have
declared war with Venezuela, then I wouldn't be saying that these are murders. Because
Did we declare war against Hamas?
no, but Israel did.
No.
They're engaged in a fight with Hamas.
So Israel does. Okay, so when a foreign country does that, wipes our hands clean. So we don't have to even do that, right? But we can just still say that when a foreign
I
nation.
never said it wipes our hands clean. I said that for the purposes of saying the president of the
so
United States is engaged in murder.
Oh, okay, great. So
It's
we're
not about being,
clean.
we're not talking about being clean or not. We're talking about whether or not somebody is engaged in the act of murder, right? Which is the unjustified killing of a person.
Conspiracy, no.
Conspiracy to commit murder would be like the
no.
plan to kill a person.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And the plan was to use those bombs to drop them on civilians. What about that, Stephen?
I don't know if that is necessarily what the plan was, but I don't know if he would charge.
Hold on,
somebody
what
for
was the-
something
sorry,
gun.
I just want to be clear that I don't want to.
No, I'm not sure that they could. In the context of the dispensation of congressionally authorized aid from the president, I'm not sure that giving them arms over to an administration that is trying to, further Congress's will in that sense, that is cognizable as murder because it's, strictly speaking, authorized by the federal government, and as such, it's I think by definition not a crime. I don't think that the strikes in the international waters are authorized, and therefore they can be a crime. That's my sense of it.
This
What
to
do you think
become
the bombs are
Israel
for?
Palestine.
Stephen, what do you think the bombs are for?
For military conflict?
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So, you can see how he's trying to come up with like levels of separation here to say, well, now that doesn't matter.
Also, I think that compliance with the rules of war is the question in one context versus whether the rules of war even apply in another.
When it comes to when it's my leader that I agree with, right, that I dick suck, well then, of course, he wouldn't have to face the same charges. What about Obama, right? Like our friend,
Well, to be clear, for the thing, there's a difference between
right?
two parties that are actively engaged in a military conflict. A lot different than just bombing people
please.
in the middle of the ocean, right? You acknowledge these are two separate things?
Sorry, which
Do you acknowledge that killing civilians in the middle of the ocean directly with your own military against a country that you're not at war with, that's a significantly different thing than selling weapons to another country at war?
Well, technically,
No.
we weren't at war with Yemen either.
we don't have to worry. Yeah, we weren't at war.
I'm not talking about Yemen
either.
right now, but we have the use of authorization for the military force that covers, I believe, the entire Middle East. But regardless of the Yemen stuff, I'm saying you acknowledge the difference between killing foreign nationals in the middle of
Yeah, the difference has to be whether the rules of war apply and whether the specific act is authorized or not. An act is authorized, hard to see how it can be murder. By definition, murder. Let me give you an example, right? A cop is authorized to use lethal force in cases in which there is a threat to serious bodily injury or life. He's by definition authorized to use force there. And so murder, which is defined as killing with malice aforethought without justification, that without justification is an element, right? Like that's part of it. And justification, it can be defined in the context of American law by the legislature or alternatively the rules of war, some body of law, right? And so the question is whether it's unjust, whether it's right or wrong, is I think separate from the question of whether it constitutes murder. And that justification argument, I think, hits differently when it's giving of lethal aid to one country or another for a specific purpose that's been authorized by Congress or is authorized under the implied powers of the president versus action that is not. So, unfortunately, I think that Prime is on the losing side of the argument here, but I don't know if Stephen is doing the most effective job of rebutting it.
the notion with your military. There's a difference between that and selling weapons to another country.
It would be a difference if that other country was at peace, right? And then you sold them weapons, and then later on they happened to be used for something nefarious. No, there was an active military conflict. We're deeply involved in it, and then
Do you recognize there's a difference between selling a country weapons versus killing another country?
This is not effective rebuttal, I think, from Stephen. It's like, there's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference. The question isn't whether there's a difference. It's whether there's a difference with the distinction. A distinction with the difference, in other words. And so I would hope that there's some... It seems like he's scrambling to try to think of something.
Those are two different things, but are they significant enough? No, they're not significant enough to be different, right? And so, like, I get that you desperately need to draw that line, right? So then
to be clear, I'm not desperate. You're flailing right now. You're flailing right now.
Your boy Joe Biden.
It's a little debate tactic on Prime. But again, flailing.
We can even change it, right? So again, Obama, right? Bombing or assassinating Anwar al-Awlaki. Can we charge him?
No.
Yeah, you should say that one is authorized and one is not.
Oh, once again. Okay. So now we're having a direct military action by
What would you charge him with?
You could charge Obama, and you could probably charge Eric.
No, you wouldn't charge.
No, you couldn't. Oh, these guys are fucking crazy.
You wouldn't charge either one. You would look at the intention behind the action. So Obama claims.
No, it's not. It's not his subjective intent though, because it's granted that he wants to bring about a killing with malice aforethought. There's an intentionality about it as much. It's the justification, and that can't, I think, turn on one's mere subjective intent.
Obama claims he's not just murdering somebody, he's doing a military action. What were the actions that he took around the time? Did he try to hide this? Did he try to do things that he knew was illegal? No, he went to his Department of Justice. He went to Eric Holder. He sought his legal advice. No, but Trump, the administration are openly. Trump and the administration.
Oh, they smell blood in the water. They don't think his axioms are grounded, and now Connor's trying to take a bite too. but this is Prime's kill, and Connor's Connor's trying to take a bite.
Trump and the administration are openly defiant of the law. They claim that all the judges are.
He's his intuition. The problem with relying on your intuition so much, and I think that often happens with Stephen, with Andrew Wilson, these type of people, and myself sometimes too. I'll get ahead of myself and get in a discussion I'm not necessarily prepared for. Is sometimes you're sort of there, right? Like, and I think he's sort of there in that there's something about outside of the law versus inside of the law that is weirdly, in I think Stephen's mind, adjusting his prior on which is acceptable and which is not acceptable. But isn't the whole question? But then there's another like, well, aren't we defining what is lawful and not lawful? And you're using whether something is lawful or it seems circular, but there is something there, and I think it has to do with the explicit authorization. That is the justification component. And I think that he's familiar with enough of these conversations to know that there's something right there, but it's just not coming out in the most specific way.
Rigged. They don't try to figure out if the things they're doing in advance are legal or not legal. They're explicitly and openly saying,
they have
I don't believe I'm not going to fall.
Bullshit DOJ memo.
Yeah, no, but it can't just be subjective intent, and that's what he needs to drill down on. It's not just subjective intent. It's what is in fact authorized. That I'm not John Roberts. You're not talking to John Roberts, and it doesn't just have to do with like we close our eyes to whether something is sham or not sham. The question is whether in fact he is authorized, or if you want to put in some level of, if you take the view that there ought to be some wiggle room, a good faith thought as to whether or not it's authorized. That could happen in the context of a police shooting too, right? If you, in good faith, subjectively thought that you were authorized, maybe we downgrade it. But the problem is, if you are not, strictly speaking, objectively justified in your shooting as a cop, then you can be charged with a crime. It is both subjective and objective in the case of a cop shooting. You need to get your intuitions on these kinds of incidents. It's much helpful. I think helpful to see it through the prism of a cop shooting, because there our intuitions click right away, and we understand the justification aspect to murder, which is often left unsaid, and it often occurs in the context of self-defense, but also in the rules of war. And the rules of war / the authorities of the president with respect to the military are oftentimes cabined or expanded by Congress. And so mapping on, even though they're very different contexts, the intuition of justification from our notions and interactions with the police can help cement the kind of mental states that we're talking about here, but also the objective component to justification.
Right? That's saying, oh, it's all legal. No worries, military, right? The things that you're doing is fine. They can find the
Do you think that the memos that are coming from the
that the dividing line here is that some sort of legality, right? Or some sort of legal justification.
It is. Okay. So then he actually does his work for Stephen. It is. And it would be absurd to think it didn't, right? Because the absurdity, there are two absurdities. One absurdity is the notion that the president could never order a defensive strike, right? Like, oh, some guy is coming to attack the Twin Towers, that the president couldn't, using his authority as commander-in-chief, order the jets to take that person out, right? To take the plane that's coming at the Twin Towers out. That's one absurdity. The notion that the president would be so incapacitated to have authorized use of force in that context. Or even just like a general, let's say a general sees the Russian boats coming right away. Does he need to have a specific law necessarily passed? Not necessarily. But that's going to turn on what they're legally allowed to do and the context of what's going on. The other absurdity is the notion that the president could do anything they want. At any killing, all the president needs is some bullshit memo and some mere pretextual justification, and then they can do anything they want. Those are the two absurdities. And you don't need to accept any of those absurdities, right? If you have Roberts, the invitation is the absurdity that the president can do anything he wants all the time and not face any penalty for it, as long as he is acting within the scope of arguably like one of the powers, ordering the military. Could that be saying like not said to not be an official power? Of course it's related to the official powers. And you can't, in Roberts, in his view, you can't define the power based on one's intent or the purpose for which one would seek to use a power. Those are analytically separate. But you don't need to take Roberts' invitation to escalating executive overreach and pretextual justification. And you don't need to accept the anti-United States imperialistic empire position that anytime the president causes the death of another human being, either through withholding aid or giving weapons to something that Congress authorized, that he is liable for murder, and that he's so incapacitated to do like nothing at all, and that he doesn't, anytime he makes a decision of consequence that causes the death of other people, that he should be liable for those deaths. You don't need to accept either conclusion. And any framework that would lead you to one of those, I think you should suspect right away. And so unfortunately, Prime is wrong, and legal justification, I think, is the core distinction here. And it's one that you would understand in the context of the police. You should definitely understand it in the context of the president, even though it's harder. You get me? You guys understand?
Because all of them, all presidents, say they have legal justifications to do everything they do.
Yeah, not mere subjective, though. Not mere pretext. We can't accept that.
So do you think that all presidents seek the same, they in good faith, are seeking the same?
Okay, so intuitively, right, there is this element of good faith that he's grasping at that could be this distinction. And I think that's one, I think that those are two, there are two ways in which you could marshal an argument against Prime here, is either add the good faith modifier, good faith regarding authorization, or actual authorization. Well, yeah, Trump can think whatever he wants. He's not actually authorized. Obama was actually authorized. Or you could take the view, Obama had a good faith belief in his authorization. Trump did not.
Level
It doesn't
of
matter if it's
affirmation.
good faith or not. When they're presenting this, right?
It should matter. It absolutely should matter. Now, what Prime is saying might be more accurate of Robert's position on executive authority, but you just don't have to accept that.
Matter if you're trying to figure out if your actions are legal or not? What do you think a crime is? What do you think a key element of committing a crime is? Is the criminal state of mind?
Justification here. Yeah.
Okay. So, Prime, please let me tag in just for a second, okay? The reason why
Prime, you had him. You had him. You should have pushed him on some hypos. You gave him time to recover, and I think his intuition got him the rest of the way. All right, we'll do a few more minutes of this, and then I have to go.
Rahman Alawaki and Anwar al.
Oh no, but Connor, you're gonna get now dumpstered because he's prepared. His intuition has kicked in, and I think he's gonna be able to apply the framework that he just recreated for himself onto your example and just destroy you. Let's see.
Alawaki is in more gray area than you might want to concede it for, is because they're United States citizens, and there's a huge argument about geography and also whether or not like assisting a terrorist organization precludes you from due process. There's actually an argument there. And Eric,
that's
Holder,
fine. But the thing that you're, I'm not done yet. God, I know, but everything you're about to say is irrelevant. But go ahead.
Oh,
let him say it. Hold on, let him say it, and then we'll.
It's all relevant.
Thank you. Okay, I will. The reason why it's irrelevant is what you're about to give is an argument that challenges the legality of the U.S. president to assassinate essentially American citizens of other countries, which is a fair argument. But none of that gets you any closer to saying Obama committed murder.
Wait, hold on. Obama went to Eric Holder. Eric Holder said, "Yeah, we're probably good." That was it. And then they drone striked Anwar al-Awlaki, and they drone strike for Abdul Rahman, by the way. They were drone striking somebody else, and then they just accidentally killed a 16-year-old U.S. citizen. So like that's fine. Like for me, I don't give a sorry, Prime, I'm gonna betray you a little bit.
Right.
I don't give a fuck about Anwar al-Awlaki. I don't give a fuck about
great.
Abdul Rahman. What I'm trying to point out to you, though, is that once you open up this can of worms of, well, this admin was uniquely bad according to my perspective, therefore we're going to go after all you motherfuckers, then at that point you're opening up a can of worms, not just for previous administrations, but for any future administrations.
Is there a fact of the matter that some administrations might be betraying the ideas or the laws of the U.S. Constitution more than other people, or is it all just like a whatever meme?
Of course, but one of the largest political scandals of the past 30 years is the fact that we have evidence for this. Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney knowingly exaggerated evidence in order to justify the case for the war in Iraq that resulted in hundreds of thousands of dead people, tens of thousands of American people.
Okay, now he's on his soapbox. Hey, guys, what a fun time. What a great moment we had there. A little disappointed it's not as fiery as I wanted, and they're not really sticking to the tailoring of Nuremberg and what those mean, so kind of lost a little bit of interest, but don't worry. You can watch the rest of that. I'm sure they all streamed it, so you can watch it on their channels. I gave you my thoughts a little bit. Overview is, I only watched half of it. I'm sorry if it gets more fiery later. Maybe we'll pick it up at some other time. But it's late for me, folks. It's late. And I try to give you the best in the business of analysis here. I get one guide every now and then, but what can you do? Overall thoughts. I think overall the plan to charge people or in other way impose liability for insurrection if they haven't actually engaged. And I think that the notion of engaged that was offered is a little untethered and unrealistic and unhinged. That said, I think Connor didn't do an effective job of explaining the potential political ramifications, even though I agreed with him on that bit on engagement. He kind of brought up like the wrong reasons why they're not engaging. Everyone seems to agree that there ought to be some level of like transparency and investigation on some level. If that's only congressional, whatever, I think that's cool. I thought Saxium's a bit of a non-element so far. He should try to get involved more. Prime had his amazing moment, potentially, but I think he kind of muted it a little bit by choosing to monologue a bit and take some unneeded moments instead of just pressing him on with questions. I think that in general, monologuing is not a good tactic for a slippery debater. You need to just ask questions and let them speak for themselves. Wick is doing a great job. He kind of bullied Staxium at the beginning there. I didn't really like that, but I think he's moderating a good debate. Hey, love you guys very much. We'll be more legal tomorrow, probably. Probably catch me in the morning, but I'll let you know. Stay cool.